Chapter 1535. In terms of top-tier combat strength, Junrin Tonggu and Masato Kitano were no match for the 10 major celestial sects. After all, they were all at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. However, the appearance of perfected Qingwei and Gu Hongjinren, and judging from their attitudes, it was obvious that they were on the side of the sect of all times. This instantly narrowed the gap between the two. If they were to fight, the scene would definitely be exciting. The powerhouses of the celestial sects had a headache when they saw the itinerant cultivators coming to help. They were not afraid of them. This time, they were not here to fight, but to eliminate the witch and nip the danger in the bud. Forget it. Any itinerant cultivators who participated in this matter and protected the sect of all times must be treated as enemies. Just as the powerhouses of the 10 major celestial sects were about to fight, the powerhouses of the Thunder Rhombus race, Ice Phoenix race, Divine Strider race, and other races flew over from afar, making them overjoyed. You have helpers. We don't have helpers. Swoosh. Swoosh. In the blink of an eye, the powerhouses of the various races rushed over from afar, and then stood in front of the sect of all times, forming a human barricade. Gah! The smiles on the faces of the martial artists of the 10 major celestial sects froze. You, the powerhouse of the Ling Tian celestial sect, said in a deep voice. What do you mean? The sect of all times is in trouble, and the Thunder Rhombus race is here to help. The sect of all times is in trouble, and the Ice Phoenix race is here to help. The powerhouses of the various races stood at the mountain gate and shouted one by one. Judging from their aura, it was obvious that they were not joking. To be honest, this scene was very exciting. Everyone could imagine what it would be like to see powerhouses from different races supporting the sect of all times and Jun Changshao. Unfortunately, there were no onlookers at such a big scene. Otherwise, they would definitely be able to take advantage of the situation based on their expressions and attitudes. It was fine. Perfected Qingwei and Gu Hongjinren were here. When the two of them saw that the various races did not stand on the side of the 10 major celestial sects, but in front of the sect of all times' mountain gate, they were stunned. To be able to get the various races to help, this kid was quite capable. Everyone, Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your help. I, Jun, will remember this kindness in my heart." The various races almost couldn't help but curse out loud. Kid, don't think too much. We're not here to help you. We're here to help our clansmen. After all, if anything happens to your clan, it'll definitely be a huge blow to your clan. Patriarch. Outside the timeless immortal mountain, a shout rang out. We are here. Li Fei was sitting on a giant crab as the latter flew over from the side. Accompanying him were the experts from the giant crab tribe. 7 fields also rushed over, riding on a super large crayfish. Seeing the return of the two disciples, one riding a crab and the other riding a crayfish, Jun Changshao almost couldn't hold back his laughter even though the scene was extremely solemn. Pahaha! Su Xiaoma clutched his stomach and laughed. Li Qingyang had undergone strict training and remained calm throughout. As for Yi Xingchen, he couldn't laugh at all. This was because his life contract beast was in the form of a husky. He had no right to laugh at others. Jun Changshao bought 10 beast eggs from the Spirit Beast Hall and distributed them to Li Fei, 7 fields, Long Xiang and the others. Then, they were taken away by their clansmen one after another. Only a year had passed. Now that the sect was in trouble, they all brought their contracted beasts and experts from their clansmen to help. Of course, the process was a little discordant. For example, Li Fei, after knowing what happened to his junior sister, he immediately placed a sword on his neck and shouted, "Are you going or not? Go, go, go." Thus the giant crab tribe sent people over. 7 fields Long Xiang, and the others' method was gentler, but there was only one theme. The sect was in trouble, so they had to return. More and more clansmen rushed over and blocked the entrance of the sect of all times without any explanation. This made the experts of the 10 great immortal sects look even worse. That's right. The various clansmen were indeed here to help. But they were not here to help the 10 great immortal sects. They were here to help the sect of all times. In terms of the number of top experts, The immortal sects were on par with Jimren Tonggu and the other rogue cultivators. However, their core strength was in the lead. After all, they had more than 100 truth-seeking realm and peak revolving core realm experts. As the various clansmen rushed over and stood on Jun Changxiao's side, the gap between the two sides was instantly closed. Jun Changxiao even had the upper hand, because there were dozens of clansmen here. Any 2 or 3 of them could form a huge scale. The situation just now was that the rogue cultivators and the sect of all times were fighting against the 10 great immortal sects. The current situation was that the rogue cultivators, the sect of all times, and the various clansmen had formed a 3-way alliance to fight against the 10 great immortal sects. Audience, come quickly. This was a super show that could not be missed. Sorry, even if many cultivators were on the way, they did not dare to get close to the ancient immortal mountain. After all, there were so many experts, and any one of them was at the peak of the revolving core realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that the scene that was happening at the sect of all times was rarely seen in 100,000 years. Come on! Jun Changxiao roared, fight! With the protection of his master and the various clansmen, Go Sheng was not afraid at all. He even had a crazy thought in his mind. Why not take the opportunity to unite the rogue cultivators and clansmen to overthrow the realm hall and the 10 great immortal sects? Kid, the Ling Tian celestial sect expert said coldly. Do you think that they can protect your sect of all times? Swish, swish. In an instant, the various immortal sect cultivators raised their hands and pulled out something that looked like a signal gun. Several streams of light instantly shot into the sky. If you have people to help, how can the 10 great immortal sects not have people to help? Not good. Jimren Tonggu frowned and said, this is a call from the immortal sects. When the various sects see this, they will definitely send experts to help. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. The help of his master and his clansmen had made him forget that the 10 great immortal sects were in charge of the entire upper realm. They had absolute authority over the true immortal sects and true immortal sects. This was only one of the reasons. In fact, the immortal sect experts that came to the sect of all times this time were only a small portion. There were more forces that had yet to be mobilized. When the immortal sects summoned the shining heavens, they would definitely send out their elites. When that time came, the scale would only be greater. If all the sects and forces gathered at the Aeon Immortal Mountain, the scene would definitely be comparable to the war against the demon clan 100,000 years ago. This kind of situation where the entire upper realm was mobilized usually happened at the end of the story. Now that the sect of all times, who had only been in the upper realm for a few years, was experiencing this in advance, it was equivalent to entering the ending mode right at the beginning. Wait a minute. It had not even reached the mystery stage yet. The pace was too fast. Of course, for such a big event, Jun Changxiao and his disciples were just bystanders. The ones holding the fort were Jimren Tonggu, the rogue cultivators, and the various clansmen. Without them, the scene would have ended with the sect of all times being destroyed and the main character dying. Ryu Sinan, who was heading towards the Aeon Immortal Mountain, turned around and looked at the numerous immortal sects summoning lights. He immediately put down the stone coffin and sat on a rock. Looks like the immortal sects have already joined in. I won't join in the fun then. It was impossible for him to go because the sect of all times was in the southeast. He was heading towards the northwest. If the upper realm was round, he should be able to reach it after walking around. Whoosh! Whoosh! Streaks of light flew across the sky, heading in the direction of the immortal sects summoning lights. In another direction, the various major sects received the summons and sent their experts over. From afar there were afterimages and lights everywhere. Sect of all times, Jimren Tonggu, the rogue cultivators, and the various clansmen did not make a move. They did not have the confidence to gain an advantage in front of the 10 major immortal sects, so the situation was in a stalemate. Master, Jun Changxiao said telepathically, let's fight. Today's situation could not be resolved without a winner. It was better to act early than late. Everyone, Jimren Tonggu looked at the 10 major immortal sects experts and said, this is all because of the demonic body. Why don't we sit down calmly and discuss a way to avoid conflict? He wanted to fight too, but if he did, it would be equivalent to making an enemy out of the entire upper realm sections. His future would not be easy. There's no need to discuss. The Lingtian immortal sex expert said firmly, this girl must die today. The demonic ancestor has been resurrected, Masato Kitano said calmly. If we kill each other, he'll be the one to reap the benefits. That's right, Jinren Tongu said. Your immortal sects and the various clansmen once destroyed the demonic clan. The demonic ancestor must hold a grudge against you. The most important thing now is to find him. The 10 major immortal sects experts fell silent. Indeed, it was still unknown whether or not that girl was in danger. The demon ancestor was definitely the #1 threat. For the sake of the eternal sect, he had to fight with all kinds of loose cultivators and big clans. In the end, if there were any losses, wouldn't that give him a chance to develop? Seeing their hesitation, Jinren Tongu continued, Actually, Master. Jun Changshao interrupted him and said in shock, Look at the sky. Jinren Tongu looked up instinctively, and his eyes widened. The black clouds that were gradually dispersing suddenly gathered together and spun continuously, forming a huge vortex that seemed to cover half of the upper realm. At the same time, the uneasiness that arose earlier became unprecedentedly strong. Gu Zhaoxi also had the same feeling, so he broke down mentally. Could it be that the ominous sign at the beginning was not because of the immortal sect's siege? What is this? The 10 major immortal sects experts were also stunned. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, something gradually appeared in the vortex until its entire body was revealed. It was a giant steel battleship that was dozens of times larger than the ancient warship. Fuck, Jun Changshao said in shock. A spaceship? An alien invasion? Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, more steel battleships flew out of the vortex, and there were as many as 10 of them. They were like mountains, hovering in the upper realm sky like kings descending. Chapter 1536. 10 gigantic warships hovered in the sky. Coupled with the dark clouds, the atmosphere was rather strange. What's this? All the martial artists in the upper realm were dumbfounded. They had seen warships before, but they had never seen one of this size and size. Jun Changshao frowned. As a modern person who had transmigrated from the cerulean planet, he was familiar with this scene because it felt like the sudden arrival of an alien civilization in a sci-fi movie. Why did he not consider that this was a helper called by the 10 major immortal sects? Of course, there were flying warships in the upper realm, such as his master's ancient warship. However, they were more traditional in terms of workmanship and specifications. They only had special powers because of the complex formation system. On the other hand, the warships that appeared out of nowhere were made of a material similar to steel. This definitely represented an extremely high level of technology. Could it be? Jun Changshao said to himself. There are other civilizations besides the upper realm? The system said. This place is just a higher level and stronger than the falling star continent. It still exists in the universe system, so it's not unique. Jun Changshao said. Why haven't I heard you mention this before? Is there a need to? You definitely didn't know at first. The system was too lazy to argue with him. The 10 warships hovered in the sky of the upper realm. Jinren Tongu, Masato Kitano, and the powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects were stunned. Iwudi was the only one who was calm. At this moment, although he was observing the foreign warships, he guessed, people from other realms? Unlike the system's hindsight, this fellow had a good understanding of things outside the upper realm. It even knew that the universe system divided the planes into continents and realms. For example, the falling star continent and the Tianyuan continent belonged to the lower universe, while those in the upper universe were called realms. For example, the upper realm they were in now was actually a plane in the upper universe. Now that a huge vortex had gathered in the sky, and the sudden appearance of the unknown warships, it meant that people from another realm were here. That's not right, Iwudi said to himself. How did they find this place? The distance between realms was extremely far, and there were restrictions from the heavenly axiom. Unless it was under special circumstances, they were not allowed to cross paths. After spending so much time, I only found this godforsaken place. What a disappointment. A cold voice came from the largest warship in the sky. Jun Changxia's mouth twitched. Describing the upper realm as a place where even birds don't shit, this person's tone was not small at all. However, it also made him realize that the other party had come with ill intentions. Sure enough, the cold voice sounded again. No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. Since you're here, you should take some supplies with you. Cough. He cleared his throat and said, all living beings here, listen up. You have 3 days to hand over all your resources. Otherwise, there's no need for you to exist. The powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects, and the rogue cultivators, such as Jinren Tonggu, all frowned. Were they robbed by bandits? And from his tone, he seemed to be very arrogant. Of course. The cold voice was heard again. You may not agree with me, or you may have deep doubts. In order to let you see your own insignificance, I will first give you a generous gift. Crack, crack. As soon as he finished speaking, the bottom cabins of the 10 battleships slowly opened. Swish, swish. In an instant, streams of light flew out from within. There were so many of them that they looked like locusts passing through. Jun Changxia released his spiritual thoughts, and his eyes widened. Those streams of light turned out to be things that looked like fighter jets. Flying battleships were already very high-tech, and now there were so many fighter jets. Did these bandits come from a world that took the path of technology? Most importantly, there was no pilot in the fighter jets. Was there no one controlling them? This was a high martial fantasy world. There were battleships and drones. Were they planning to change it to a sci-fi category? Swish, swish. Streams of light immediately fell from the fighter jets that flew over and came into contact with the ground at high speed. Boom, boom, boom. Sounds of explosions could be heard. A wide area of the forest was instantly filled with holes. Fuck, Jun Changxia broke down. They're even carrying missiles. Thousands of unmanned fighter jets flattened a forest that spanned thousands of miles in the shortest time possible. This kind of destructive power was quite strong. Damn it! The powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects were instantly enraged. How dare they destroy their home? This was intolerable. Go! Swish! 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 10 peak-stage truth-seeking realm powerhouses turned into streams of light and flew out of the Aeon Immortal Mountain. They approached the group of unmanned fighter jets at the fastest speed possible. Their majestic true spirit power turned into palm prints that covered the sky and pressed down mercilessly. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, dozens of fighter jets exploded in midair. They were very fast, but they could only be abused in front of high-level martial artists. Therefore, in a world that focused on martial arts, strength was true strength. The so-called technology was nothing more than an auxiliary method, and could not replace living beings who could comprehend the world. Boom, 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 boom. In the sky, the light of explosions continued without end. The powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects, who were originally going to fight Jinren Tonggu and the other itinerant cultivators, suddenly turned into fighter jets. The change in style was a little too fast. How dare you resist? A cold voice came from the huge battleship. Then we can only destroy this world directly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At this moment, the powerhouses of the Lingtian Immortal Sect had already rushed up. They suddenly opened their hands, and extremely powerful true spirit power quickly gathered. They shouted, "Go to hell first!" Swoosh. A shock wave similar to the Kamehameha instantly erupted from their hands, and the power it contained directly tore through space. Too strong. Jun Changxiao frowned. If such a powerful energy wave hit the sect, it would definitely be annihilated instantly. Boom! In an instant, the majestic true spirit power pierced through heaven and earth, and fiercely blasted at the bottom of the huge battleship where the sound came from. Visible ripples instantly rippled from midair and spread far, far away. At the same time, the martial artists in the upper world were shocked. They were not shocked that a peak truth-seeking realm cultivator could erupt with an energy wave that seemed to split heaven and earth. but that in the face of such a terrifying force, the huge battleship stood in place unscathed, and did not even retreat. How is this possible? The powerhouses of the Lingtian immortal sect were dumbfounded. If they attacked with this move, not to mention the sect of all times, even the Phoenix Perch immortal mountain would be razed to the ground. The target of the attack did not move at all. What kind of terrifying defense did it have? Tisk tisk. A cold voice came. You're not weak, but you're still far from being able to hurt my shuttle. Swish. Swish. At this moment, the other 9 powerhouses flew over and said in unison, "Let's attack together." Okay. Everyone unleashed their cultivation and gathered energy between their hands. One force could not shake the huge halberd. Could 10 forces not do the trick? They did not know if it would work, but the other party would definitely not give them a chance to launch a second attack. Hum. At this moment, the bottom cabins of the 10 battleships opened, and a huge cylinder poked out from each of them. The front was shining with a dazzling light. Due to the material and workmanship, it was full of high-tech aura. It's over. Jun Changshao thought to himself, they're in trouble. Chapter 1537. Oh no! When the strange cylinders that gathered energy appeared in the bottom cabins of the 10 warships, the powerhouses of the Lingtian immortal sect immediately realized that something was wrong. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Swish. Everyone hurriedly dispersed, but before they could retreat, 10 beams of light shot out from the cannon-like devices. They were so fast that they did not have any time to react. Boom! Boom! A deafening explosion suddenly sounded in the entire upper realm, and the space in the area where the warships were floating suddenly became distorted. Oh my god! What kind of power is this? All the martial artists widened their eyes, and a strong shock rose in their hearts. Jun Changshao was not surprised, because the moment the cannon-like device appeared, he realized that it was definitely a high-tech weapon with extremely strong offensive power. Plop! Plop! The powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects fell to the ground one after another, and stood up with difficulty. They could not help but vomit blood. From their pale faces, it was obvious that they were seriously injured. A peak truth-seeking realm powerhouse was injured by a single blow. The power of the beam was truly terrifying. A surprised voice came from the main warship. It can actually withstand the attack of a third-class transcendent destruction wave. It seems that the overall martial arts strength of this realm is not weak. This trip should not be in vain. We can obtain unexpected resources. Jinren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and the other itinerant cultivators had ugly expressions on their faces. Even the powerhouses of the 10 major immortal sects were easily defeated. This warship that suddenly appeared was extremely dangerous. It might cause the upper realm to fall into eternal damnation. Forget it, forget it. Since you don't want to cooperate, I'll find it myself. Whoosh, whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, a dense number of drones flew out of the 10 warships again. Then, they quickly flew close to the ground, emitting infrared light, as if they were exploring the terrain. Stop them! The powerhouses of the Lingtian immortal sect shouted angrily. Go! Go! The powerhouses of the immortal sects gathered in the Aeon immortal mountain rushed over together, all locking onto the drones that seemed to be searching for something. They were right to stop them, because they were searching for mineral veins in the upper realm. If they really formed a carpet search, all the resources buried underground would be discovered by some kind of high-tech and become the property of outsiders. Boom! Boom! In an instant, hundreds of martial artists from the 10 major immortal sects engaged in a fierce battle with the drones that flew around like flies. All kinds of lights flashed in the sky and at low altitudes, showing spectacular special effects. Disciple, Jinren Tonggu said in a low voice, set up the formation and protect yourselves. Chua. After saying that, he turned into a stream of light and rushed out. Along with him were Masato Kitano, the 7 sages of the ethereal sect, and other loose cultivators, as well as experts from various clans. The sudden arrival of the outsiders was a threat to the entire upper realm. Therefore, as a member of the upper realm, it was naturally their duty to defend their homeland. Brother, Gu Xiaoxi said, What should we do? Just watch, Jun Changshao said. Buzz. The Great Sect Protection Formation took effect. Buzz. The second defensive system of the myriad ancient immortal mountain took effect. After all the formations were activated normally, Jun Changshao really stood in front of the main hall and watched the show. It was not that he did not want to help, but with his current strength, he was not qualified to participate in this kind of collision between a high martial civilization and a technological civilization. The only thing he could do was to ensure that the sect was not affected. Ding! Epic level mission activated. Jun Changshao was stunned when he heard the sudden notification. Given the current situation, it was normal to give a side mission, but it was a little illogical to give an epic mission. After all, the prerequisite to trigger it was to reach the peak of a certain realm. He had not done anything and had not crushed the experience talisman. So why was it here? Schwa! He opened the panel and clicked on the introduction. Upper Realm Epic Mission. 5 mission details. The third fleet of the Astral Soul world has invaded the Upper Realm. The host and the sect must share honor and disgrace, advance and retreat together, and defend their homeland. Mission condition. Shoot down 010000 drones, shoot down 02 shuttles. Mission reward. After reading the mission introduction, Jun Changshao hugged his head and broke down. This is forcing me to go to the battlefield. It was not a problem to bite the bullet and go, but he could only act as an assistant on the flank. However, the mission condition was to shoot down 10,000 drones and 2 shuttles. Looking up at the huge warships that were like mountains, Gosheng wanted to cry but had no tears. I can't even break through the peak of the truth-seeking realm. How can I shoot them down? The system said. Since the epic mission has such a requirement, there must be a chance to complete it. It's just a little more difficult. Don't be discouraged, host. It's not a little more difficult. Jun Changshao roared. It's more difficult than ascending to the sky. Brother, Gu Zhaoxi said, don't you think these warships are a bit like the Starry Sky Fortress? They are a little similar. The 10 huge warships had something in common with the former Starry Sky Fortress, which was that their appearance was like an iron wall, as if they were indestructible. Wait. Jun Changshao had a flash of inspiration and said, we can blow them up. In the next second, a dejected expression appeared on his face. If he wanted to blow up such a huge warship, ordinary explosives would definitely not work, unless it was the soul bomb. However, this thing was gone after blowing up the Starry Sky Fortress. It's very simple. Refresh the store. If we can really refresh it at this time, won't the readers think that it's too deliberate? Why do you care so much? Heaven's arrangements are the most important. That's right. Jun Changshao hurriedly opened the store and prayed in his heart. Buddha Gautama, Jade Emperor, Bodhisattva Guanyin, please grant me strength. Swoosh. Swoosh. At this moment, hundreds of drones flew over from the sky. Missiles shot out one after another, directly bombarding the second defense system of the Aeon Immortal Mountain. Boom boom boom. Under this kind of high-tech power, the layers of defense set up by the Taishian Elder were instantly broken. Swoosh. Swoosh. The 100 drones did not stop there. They circled around the Aeon Immortal Mountain and finally locked onto the sect of all times, which was only left with the sect protection formation. This is troublesome. Zhenren Tonggu, who was in another part of the sky, had a slight change in expression. Then his eyes widened because thousands of huge humanoid steel monsters suddenly flew out from the sect protection formation. They hovered above the sect and raised their palms. A vortex appeared in the middle of their palms. What is this? Masato Katana was shocked. A voice came from the main battleship. There are mechas in this world. Crack. Crack. Thousands of Diablo mechas were ready. Zhong Yi, who was piloting the first mecha, pushed the lever and shouted, attack. Swoosh. Swoosh. In an instant, under the activation of the array and the mystic stone, beams of light shot out from the mecha's palms and instantly intertwined to form a dazzling scene. Boom. 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 Although the 100 drones dodged left and right, they were unable to withstand the thousands of attacks and were quickly shot down one by one. Some exploded on the spot, while others fell into the wilderness with billowing black smoke. Of course, there were also some that escaped and took the opportunity to fire missiles. Huff, huff. Gu Xiaoxi flew out from the Sect protection formation and unleashed his true spirit energy. It instantly materialized into a giant palm and grabbed the missile with his bare hands. Then he threw it back and directly detonated a drone that was drifting in the distance. Boom! On the highest peak of the Sect of all times, Xiao Ziji, who had transformed into a mecha, propped up a stand behind him. He raised thousands of Gatling guns in his left hand and a heavy machine gun with bullets in his right hand. He directly activated da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, boom boom boom, ding. We shot down 161,000 drones. Ding. We've shot down 481,000 unmanned drones. Ding. Under the suppression of thousands of Diablo mechas and the rain of bullets, the 100 drones that attacked the Sect of all times were all destroyed. The number of epic-level missions also jumped from 0 to 100. Outside the Sect, the battle of technology was as beautiful as a painting. Inside the Sect, Jun Changxiao was still on his way to the shop. Chapter 1538. The drones were small, fast, and fragile. As long as one could accurately capture them, even a low-level reincarnation core realm cultivator could easily destroy them. But the problem was, there were too many of them. At this moment, more were flying out of the 10 battleships like locusts. Although the 10 major immortal sects and itinerant cultivators were killing them all over the place, the overall situation was not as fast as the drones coming out. Fortunately, the various sects and reinforcements had been mobilized in advance, so they could quickly join the battle and stop the drones from spreading. What was worse was that some of them were deliberately sending themselves to their deaths, while the others were actively searching for resources. Boom! Boom! Hundreds of drones bombarded the miasma-shrouded mountain range, blasting out a tunnel that led to the underground. Then they shot some kind of light inside. Swish! 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 This place was too ordinary. There were no heaven and earth attributes, but there was a swish stone mine hidden here. If it were in the past, the cultivators would have rushed over when they saw the swish stones. Now what they needed to do was to stop these strange flying things as soon as possible. They could not let them take away their martial resources. Thud. Near the swish stone mine, Ryu Sinan walked over. He first put down the stone coffin, stretched out his fingers and grabbed at the void. He shouted, "Inescapable net! Buzz! Buzz!" The surrounding space quickly twisted and folded like a quilt. The cultivators who came to stop them heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. They thought to themselves, luckily, there's a demon exterminator who can control space. Otherwise, swish, swish. At this moment, hundreds of drones shot out a special light from their tails. They passed through the folded space and returned to the main battleship with a full load. Ryu Sinan frowned. They can actually break through space. The mine has been dug out. They're a bunch of fucking bandits. All the martial artists rushed to the mine. When they saw that the interior was empty, they were immediately enraged. Boom! Boom! At this moment, a series of explosions came from the sky. Everyone looked over in shock and saw groups of more powerful cultivators rushing over. There were as many as 3,000 to 5,000 of them. Some of them were from the Truth and Tao sects, but most of them were from the 10 great immortal sects. To be able to have absolute authority in the upper realm, the foundation and strength of the 10 ancient sects were still very strong. Go Sheng's previous idea of uniting the rogue cultivators and the various races to overthrow the heavenly monarch was simply wishful thinking. Elder Hu, the powerhouse from the Ling Tian celestial sect, shouted, "Attack the battleships above." The biggest problem now was that there was an endless stream of UAVs flying out from inside. Only by destroying them could they get rid of the source of the problem. Go! Swoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, thousands of powerhouses from the 10 major immortal sects flew into the sky. All kinds of energy converged, and the most exciting scene since the beginning of the battle erupted. Readers who do not have good mobile devices are advised to turn on the lowest settings to avoid crashing. Futile struggle. A contemptuous voice came from the main battleship. Crack! Crack! The attack systems of the 10 warships were all activated. All kinds of cannons and gun muzzles extended out and aimed at the thousands of experts who were attacking them, launching the fiercest firepower. Pung pung pung. Swish. Swish. All kinds of streamer missiles and streamer bullets rained down like a storm. Boom. Boom. Energy light flickered in the sky, and the dark environment was dyed white. The thousands of powerhouses who rushed up could not withstand the firepower at all. They could only form a defensive barrier in front of them and retreat step by step. In the collision between a high martial civilization and a technological civilization, as far as the current situation was concerned, just 10 giant battleships were enough to suppress them until they could not get close. The only fortunate thing was that the beam weapon that severely injured the peak of the truth-seeking realm was not used. It would either consume a lot of energy or require time to prepare a second time. The scene of the entire upper realm fighting against the foreign invaders was too costly, so the camera quickly turned to the Sect of all times. Although the 100 UAVs were destroyed, because the mechas had heavy firepower, it immediately attracted the attention of the invaders. They immediately deployed a few teams to launch another attack. The upper echelons and core disciples of the Sect flew out one after another. The UAVs were very fast. Without the strength of Gu Zhaoxi, who could catch missiles with his bare hands, how could they fight? At this moment, one of the martial arts techniques finally came in handy. Swish, swish. Li Qingyang, Yi Xingchen, and the others guarded the sky above the Sect. They kept waving their fingers and streams of colorful light burst out. That was right. 7 profound sunglow break. The UAVs were very fast. Mid-range martial arts techniques like the heaven-crossing palm print could not hit them at all. Moreover, they were very cunning and would not foolishly fly over. Therefore, the long-range martial arts created by the 7 profound sage came in handy. Seeing that their senior brother had used it, the outer Sect disciples followed suit. In an instant, the Sect under the protection of the Great Sect Protection Formation was densely packed with colorful light beams. They intertwined into an inescapable net and blasted toward the few UAVs that were rushing over. However, it was not done by Go Sheng, so the number of missions was always 0. Soul Bomb, my brother, hurry up and come out. If they are all killed, I will use the Soul Bomb to complete the mission. Chapter 1539. The destruction of the outermost warship greatly encouraged the upper realm martial artists. They realized that although this thing had strong defense and firepower, it was not indestructible. Go! The powerhouses of the 10 immortal sects shouted. Under their lead, the major sects and itinerant cultivators took advantage of the situation and locked onto the second warship, gathering their energy to suppress it. These martial artists and forces might be enemies, or they might have grudges. But when their home was invaded, they truly united against the enemy. Boom! Boom! All kinds of energy exploded in mid-air, and all kinds of light beams and drones shuttled around. In such a chaotic battle, there were bound to be sacrifices. Therefore, corpses and machine parts could be seen falling from the sky. Damn it! In the main warship, the young man sitting at the head of the table was furious. As the commander of the 3rd Fleet of the Astral Soul Realm, he had never been defeated in hundreds of battles in the vast universe. Now one of his warships was destroyed here. Captain, a subordinate sitting in front of a light screen similar to a formation said, the analysis is out. This place is from the upper realm and has reached quasi-second class. Quasi-second class? The young man realized. No wonder it's so strong. Captain, the subordinate in front of the light screen said. According to the Astral Spiritual Nexus, there are powerhouses with combat strength over 10,000 in this world. What? After hearing the report, the young man's expression changed instantly. Retreat. Retreat immediately. Yes. The subordinate immediately notified the other 8 warships to retreat. Judging from the tone and atmosphere, it seemed to be very urgent. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao was so anxious that his but was about to catch fire. He thought that it would be difficult for the upper realm to deal with these invaders, and that he would have to rely on himself to save the world. However, a warship was destroyed so quickly. No, He had to hurry. If they took care of it in advance, how could he complete the epic mission? Because of the fixed number of times given by the VIP, Jun Changshao kept refreshing. He even took a cursory look and immediately replaced the soul bomb. He had missed out on many recipes and equipment. Patriarch, Li Qingyang said, "The warships are moving." Jun Changshao raised his head in a hurry, only to see that the 9 warships were suppressing the experts who were coming at them with firepower, while they turned around to face the enormous swirl. The drones that were scattered in the sky were returning one after another, as if they were preparing to slip away. Fuck. Are they trying to run away? The system said. Based on the current situation, although these battleships will cause serious damage to the upper realm, the price to pay is that they will inevitably be wiped out. Therefore, retreating is a very wise choice. Damn it! Jun Changshao cursed loudly. The number of drones shot down was far less than 10,000, especially since none of the targets had been met. If they were allowed to escape, he would not be able to complete the epic mission. Wouldn't he be stuck in the realm forever? Because the battleship had the intention of retreating, the drones that were originally planning to attack the sect of all times all retreated. Hoo-hoo! Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others breathed rapidly as a faint smile appeared on their faces. The battle with the drones did not last long, but he was able to unleash the 7 profound sunglow break without restraint. The entire process was carefree and unrestrained. That was a good fight. Su Xiaoma grinned. It's never been this crazy. Fighting the drones this time was also a valuable growth experience for the disciples of the sect. At the same time, they were more aware of the power of the 7 profound sunglow break. At this time, the martial artists of the upper realm realized that the battleship was retreating, so they were all filled with joy. However, only Gu Xiaoxi's frown deepened. The appearance of the huge whirlpool and the battleship made the uneasiness in his heart particularly strong. Now that the enemy was planning to retreat, it should have subsided, but instead, it became more intense. Could it be? Gu Xiaoxi was shocked. These foreign invaders still have reinforcements. Is the upper realm going to face an even greater crisis? Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, the 9 battleships that had turned around shot out billowing energy from their tails and headed toward the whirlpool. The 10 great immortal sects, Jinren Tonggu, and the other rogue cultivators did not chase after them. This was because when the enemy retreated, their firepower was still at full strength and was even more ferocious than before. The upper realm. A young man's gloomy voice came from the main battleship. I'll be back. After destroying one of his battleships, he would definitely not let it go. All the powerhouses frowned. This kind of strange battleship that suddenly appeared had extremely strong power without sending out any martial artists. If it came back and brought more people, it would really be a huge crisis. Idiot. At this moment, vulgar words came from the sect of all times. Everyone released their thoughts and looked over in shock. They saw Jun Changshao standing on the highest mountain, holding an object and saying, "You come and go as you please. Have you asked for my permission?" Jinren Tonggu's expression became interesting. These invaders were defeated by the joint forces of the 10 great immortal sects and the others. And this disciple just jumped out and shouted, "It's a little shameless." Kid. A voice came from the main battleship. These mechs of yours are a little interesting. The next time I come, I'll study them carefully. I'm sorry. Jun Changshao picked up the newly bought rocket launcher and said, "There won't be a next time for you and your fleet." Pa. He pressed the button. Boom. In an instant, a cannonball with a stream of light behind it burst out, but it did not attack the battleship. Instead, it flew to an area higher than the battleship and then fell vertically. In the process, it instantly disintegrated and turned into small cannonballs. The camera suddenly stopped. The words "precise division lock shot" filled the entire screen. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. The cannonballs instantly exploded on the main battleship like rain. For a moment explosions and fireballs rose frequently, but it did not do anything. The new and improved RPG rocket launcher could be used to blow up drones, but it would definitely be like a mosquito bite when used to blow up a steel battleship, that even a peak truth-seeking state could not shake. Kid, the young man sneered and said, your weapon is not bad. Wait for me, Captain, one of his subordinates said. Someone is rushing up. On a similar barrier, Gu Zhaoxi turned into a stream of light and was approaching the main battleship alone. There was a determined look on his face. TSK. The young man said disdainfully, you're courting death. If it was a group of upper realm powerhouses coming from behind, he might be afraid. But it was only one person, and according to the data analysis of the light screen, his combat power was less than 1,000. He could be classified as a fly. Destroy him. The young man ordered. Quickly evacuate this place. Yes. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. All the weapons of the main battleship and several auxiliary battleships were aimed at Gu Zhaoxi, who was flying up. The latter burst out his true spirit power and turned it into a big hand. He roared, since ancient times, who has not died? Leave a loyal heart to me. Brother. Standing on the mountain peak, Jun Changshao put down the rocket launcher, saluted and said, take care. Swish. Swish. Drizzle Peak, War Cavalry Peak, Medical Peak, Formation Peak, and other halls of the sect of all times. 100,000 disciples all raised their heads and saluted Gu Zhaoxi with the highest standard of military salute. Masters Junior, have a safe journey. His deep voice shook the sky. Vaguely, it was as if Gu Zhaoxi turned around and looked at the sect of all times with a bright smile on his face. Dongfeng Express, the mission will be accomplished. Boom! Accompanied by an inspiring roar. The entire upper realm was instantly shrouded in a scorching white light. The violent energy whistled and swept across, shaking the space into pieces. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. Ding! Shot down 12 shuttle battleships. Ding! Shot down 32 shuttle battleships. Ding! Shot down 92 shuttle battleships. Ding! We shot down 359-111-0000 drones. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. Chapter 1540. What was a big explosion? Today, Zhenren Tonggu and the other itinerant cultivators and the major immortal sects had all witnessed it with their own eyes. To be exact, they had witnessed it in a very embarrassing manner. Because the moment the mushroom cloud that covered half of the sky rose, they were all sent flying by the violent energy without exception. Thump, 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 thump. One by one, the peak truth-seeking realm cultivators staggered to the ground, their eyes filled with shock. The core of the explosion was high up in the sky, closest to the vortex. Even they were affected. If they were closer, wouldn't they die on the spot? Thinking of this, everyone broke out in cold sweat. The terrifying explosion and the subsequent chain of explosions lasted for a long time. The surrounding space could be seen shattering like a spider web. Everyone knew that this was only the area affected by the energy. The explosion range must be even more terrifying. The earth-shattering explosion was unforgettable. Sect of all times. The aftermath of the explosion was not over, and Jun Changshao did not put down his saluting hand. That's right. Just as the 9 warships were about to escape, he finally refreshed the soul bomb. According to the introduction, it came from the main mission of the sect ascension. It was expensive in terms of price. 1 million contribution points and 1,000 reputation points. The enemy was about to escape, so Jun Changshao bought it without any hesitation. At this time, as long as he could get rid of the warships and complete the epic mission, it didn't matter even if he went bankrupt. But there was a problem. How should he throw the bomb after buying it? Jun Changshao had seen the power of the soul bomb when blowing up the Starry Sky Fortress. Since he used this kind of nuclear weapon, he had to make it explode at a close distance. Otherwise, it would easily affect the sect. Brother. At this moment, Gu Zhaoxi frowned and said, I feel uneasy. Got it. Brother had the spirit of reincarnation. Every time he died, he would become stronger. There should be no problem for him to take the bomb and detonate it. Brother. Jun Changshao said seriously, there's a very great and important thing for you to do. Great. Important? Gu Zhaoxi was stunned and said, what is it? Swish. Jun Changshao put the soul bomb in his hand and pointed at the warship that had been activated. I'll cover you. You're responsible for throwing this thing over. That simple? It's that simple. All right. Gu Zhaoxi set up the soul bomb and was about to fly to the warship. Brother. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao's voice came from behind him. The thing you're holding has blown up a cosmic fortress before. Jie. Gu Zhaoxi stopped in his tracks, the expression on his face becoming interesting. After the second round of torture, he had regained all his memories of the lower universe. Therefore, he knew what his brother meant. Once he went there, it would be difficult for him to come back. Brother. Gu Zhaoxi did not turn around. Can I not go? You don't have to go. Even if he had the spirit of samsara and could be resurrected after death, Jun Changshao wouldn't force him. This was because the 10 great immortal sects didn't have the right to determine good and evil, and he also didn't have the right to deprive others of their lives, especially his own life and death brother. Phew. Gu Zhaoxi took a deep breath and said, that girl Menjing has the innate sacred demon body. The 10 great immortal sects will eventually make things difficult for her. If the sacrifice of one person in exchange for the peace of her and the sect, I, Gu Zhaoxi, will not shirk my responsibility. Swish. Jun Changshao didn't say anything. He took the rocket launcher and mounted it on the mountain peak. Brother will escort you. Martial uncle. All the disciples looked at the back view of that righteous man, and tears welled up in their eyes. Pa. Gu Zhaoxi lowered his head, lit a cigar and took a puff. I've been very happy these days because I got to know you lovely martial nephews. Boom. The God-modified rocket launcher's special effect shell was fired. Gu Zhaoxi didn't have time to take a second puff. He threw the cigar on the ground and flew up without hesitation. Although the process was fast, the camera was moving very slowly. It was so slow that the mask on his face gradually fell off, revealing his original appearance. The life was Gu Zhaoxi. The death was Gu Zhaoxi. Whoosh! The great ray of light flew out of the sect of all times and rushed toward the 9 battleships with determination. It's him. A warden from the realm hall frowned. The powerhouse from the Ling Tian celestial sect asked, Who? The traitor. The warden said with difficulty, Gu Zhaoxi. What? The powerhouses from the 10 major celestial sects were stunned. Even the rogue cultivators like Zhenren Tonggu and Masato Katana were dumbfounded. The little guy who wore the sect of all times uniform was the traitor, who had been going against the realm hall all this while? Since they didn't recognize him at first, why did he suddenly reveal his original appearance and rush toward the 9 battleships alone? Could it be that he wanted to take the opportunity to die and reincarnate to become stronger? Fortunately, Gu Zhaoxi didn't know what the powerhouses from the 10 major celestial sects were thinking. Otherwise he would have left and yelled, I'm not doing this anymore. Whoever wants to do it can do it. Boom! When the soul bomb exploded completely and a huge mushroom cloud covered half of the upper realm, the powerhouses who had been suspicious finally understood that the traitor and the invader had perished together. Hero! Zhenren Tonggu said in admiration. Great hero! Sacrificing oneself for the greater good. Masato Katano said, I'll always remember this selfless and fearless spirit. These 2 brothers were deliberately exaggerating their emotions, so that the other martial artists would remember that Gu Zhaoxi was the one who had perished together with the enemy. He was from the sect of all times. As expected, many rogue cultivators and martial artists looked at him with respect. They knew that the traitor Gu Zhaoxi had the spirit of reincarnation and could be resurrected after death. However, he should be respected for sacrificing himself at this critical moment. Inform Clan Master Shen. The powerhouse from the Ling Tian celestial sect said seriously, remove Gu Zhaoxi's identity as a traitor. The deacon said hesitantly. This person has a vile nature. He might continue to commit crimes after being resurrected. We'll talk about the future in the future. Right now he's a hero. Understood. The energy and light from the explosions gradually dissipated. A huge crater appeared in the sky. The 9 invading battleships were also confirmed to have been completely annihilated from the notifications. Gu Zhaoxi, on the main peak's martial arts field, An unfinished cigar was still burning. Jun Changxiao landed and picked it up. Then he sat cross-legged on the stone slab and took a deep puff. He looked calm on the surface, but his heart was in agony. Even if the notification of completing the epic mission sounded in his ears, even if the completion rate was 600%, even if the rewards were generous, even if his realm had broken through from the 7th transformation to the peak, Doraemon would definitely use this chance to slander Go Sheng. But he chose to remain silent and not defend himself. Because, being able to complete the mission and break through consecutively was indeed built on Gu Zhaoxi's sacrifice. Selfish. I'm too selfish. The crater in the sky was destined to take time to repair. But the pain in Jun Changxiao's heart could not be erased. Unless Gu Zhaoxi was reborn and came to the sect of all times again. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma's eyes were red as he choked with sobs. Let's hold a glorious funeral for martial uncle. He was already wearing mourning clothes. All the disciples of the sect of all times were wearing mourning clothes. The system could not help but roar. When the fuck did you wear this? Chapter 1541. Gu Zhaoxi was dead again. Unlike the past, his death this time was not only for the sect of all times, but also for Jun Changxiao, allowing him to reach the peak from rank 7. That was right. He had advanced 3 levels in a row. Although Yao Minjing's breakthrough was fierce, it was still due to the fusion of physiques, so there was at least some scientific basis. On the other hand, this guy was completely crazy. Sigh. Forget it. After all, he did not feel good about Gu Zhaoxi's death. Li Qingyang and the others began to move. First, they considered where to set up the mourning hall. Senior brother. Lu Wancher choked. Let's choose the Spirit Beast Hall. I think that's fine. No problem. Thus, the Purple King sat in the stone pavilion far away, panting with rage. He watched as they removed the word beast from the Spirit Beast Hall. A perfectly good hall turned into a mourning hall in an instant. As Gu Zhaoxi's death was too tragic, not even a corpse was left behind. Thus, the disciples could only place the former's clothes in the coffin. Swoosh, swoosh, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano landed, and cupped their fists at the mourning hall with solemn expressions. Little friend Gu, rest in peace. Various itinerant cultivators and martial artists also flew over, silently offering their condolences with admiration. The powerhouses of the 10 major celestial sects also came. At this moment, the conflict between them and the sect of all times was temporarily put aside with Gu Zhaoxi's death. It was unknown whether the successor of the physique would become a scourge in the future, but the fact was that the sect of all times had eliminated the invaders and made a great contribution to the upper realm. Heroes. They should be respected and paid their respects. Everyone. Outside the hall, the dazed Jun Changxiao raised his head and said, "Don't you plan to offer some silk?" Everyone's mouth twitched. Go. The powerhouse of the Ling Tian celestial sect said, "We must offer silk." After he finished speaking, he directly took out 10,000 true stones to show his respect for Gu Zhaoxi. Since the elders of the immortal sects had already given gifts, the martial artists of the other sects could only follow suit. Thus, after some calculations, they had obtained 5 million profound stones and 200,000 true stones. Everyone, Jun Changxiao said, our sect's elder died for the sake of the common people of the world. Soon a grand funeral will be held. I hope that more people will come to attend. The system was speechless. They're trying to squeeze every last bit of value out of Gu Zhaoxi after his death. Rest assured, Jun Patriarch. The powerhouse from the Ling Tian celestial sect said, I've already sent a message to the Jia Hall. On the day of his burial, all the major sects will come to pay their respects. Jun Changxiao looked up at the sky and thought, Brother, I'll hold a grand funeral for you so that everyone will remember you. You can reincarnate in peace. Wow. In a remote mountain village, the sound of a baby crying broke the silence. It's born. I'm a father. I'm a father. A middle-aged man with patches on his body was excitedly pacing back and forth in front of the central room. He lost control of his emotions and tripped over himself. At this time, the midwife walked out of the room with a baby in her arms. She smiled and said, "It's a son." Ha ha ha. The middle-aged man stood up and laughed loudly with his hands on his hips. My Gu family has a descendant. My Gu family has a descendant. Wow. Wow. The baby in the swaddling clothes cried loudly and roared in his heart. The way I reincarnated was wrong. I reincarnated into a poor family. A newborn baby that had just been born actually had an extremely clear and independent mind. This was really, that's right. He was Gu Xiaoxi, who had just died. The power of the soul bomb did not need to be described. Even if one had a reincarnation spirit, they would die very steadily. There was no chance of survival, so they reincarnated again. Unlike Yi Xingchen's soul possession, Gu Xiaoxi had to reincarnate every time he died. If he was lucky, he would reincarnate into a rich family. If he was unlucky, he would reincarnate into an ordinary family. It was very unfortunate. This reincarnation was a little bad. He was reincarnated into a poor family. Forget it, Gu Xiaoxi said to himself. It doesn't matter if the environment is good or bad. After more than 10 years, I will be a good man again. Wait, how did he die in his previous life? Why can't I remember? Gu Xiaoxi remembered his name and many things, but he forgot the most important memory. It was very normal. This was the aftereffect of reincarnation. If he was treated, as long as he met Jun Changshao again, and was beaten up by Arya in Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, he would definitely recover his memory immediately. His legs would not hurt, his waist would not ache, and he would be able to ascend to the heavens in one breath. Husband Gu. In the bedroom, the weak woman said, "Have you thought of a name?" Yes. The middle-aged man with the surname Gu smiled and said, "Let's call him Gu Go Wa." Wa. Gu Xiaoxi cried. Although it was an instinctive reaction caused by hunger, the name Go Wa sounded like it could compete with Go Sheng. Wait, who was Go Sheng? Wa Wa. Gu Xiaoxi couldn't remember, so he could only cry harder. At night, the morning hall was brightly lit. Swish. Jun Changshao sat down with 2 jars of wine, gently opened the mud seal, looked at the coffin placed in front of him, and said, "Brother, if you haven't crossed the bridge of helplessness and drunk Grandma Meng's soup, I will drink with you." Gulp gulp. The drunken dream was originally very delicious, but it was particularly spicy and bitter in his mouth. Drinking depended on his mood. If he was in a good mood, 1,000 cups were not enough to drink with a bosom friend. If he was in a bad mood, he drank it like horse urine. Because of him, Gu Xiaoxi died. Jun Changxiao's mood could be imagined, so after just a sip, he felt drunk, and the heartache became stronger. "Brother, I'm too selfish." Jun Changxiao continued to drink as he spoke. The wine flowed along his cheeks, and no one knew if it was mixed with tears. "Don't drink anymore." Rows of flowers came in from outside, pressed down on the wine jar that he was about to raise, and said, "You'll get drunk if you drink any more. I hope you're drunk." Jun Changxiao pushed her hand away and said, "I hope that when I wake up nothing happened." Rows of flowers said, "You're running away. Brother died twice all because of me." Jun Changxiao pointed to his chest and said, "Do you know how much my heart hurts?" Rows of flowers took the wine jar and said, "Gu Xiaoxi has the spirit of reincarnation. Every time he dies, he will become stronger. Why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? Give me the wine." "No. You." Jun Changxiao stood up, his eyes flashing with anger. The next second, the alcohol went to his head, and he suddenly collapsed in rows of flowers' arms like mud. This angle was very tricky. If she didn't know Go Sheng's character, she would have suspected that it was intentional. Rows of flowers helped him wipe the wine stains on his cheeks and murmured, "What should happen will happen. Even if you let your brother do it again, he will choose to sacrifice himself to help you." In the small mountain village, on the 3rd day of Gu Xiaoxi's birth, he was held in his mother's arms. "Wife." Father carried a slightly rusty axe on his back and said with a smile, "I'll go to the mountain to hunt some prey for you to nourish your body." Gu Xiaoxi secretly said, "My father won't die in the hands of wild beasts, will he? He lost his father when he was young, lost his mother when he was young, and even lost both his parents. He had been reborn many times and had experienced many things. Who? Who? Suddenly, a huge vortex suddenly appeared in the sky, and warships emerged. Huh. Because he happened to look at the sky, Gu Zhaoxi immediately saw it and said in his heart, "Why are these strange warships so familiar? Creatures of this world, listen to me." A loud voice came from the main warship. "I'll give you 3 days to give all your resources." Whoosh. Whoosh. Suddenly, several streams of light suddenly flashed in the sky. When everything calmed down, several warships that stood proudly in the sky like mountains suddenly showed cracks, and then were directly cut in half. Gu Zhaoxi's small eyes widened, because within his sight, his father was holding a wood-splitting axe, standing in the air, and said coldly, "Don't wake my son up." Hello everyone. My name is Gu Zhaoxi. Although he had been reborn many times, this was the only time he panicked the most. Because his father, who seemed to dote on him and was honest and poor, was actually an awesome powerhouse. Reincarnation is a skill, and this time I was right. She roared, "Did you give your son poison during the day?" "Wife, don't be anxious." Mr. Gu knelt on the ground and said seriously, "The 9-dragon flood dragon's milk has the effect of cleansing the marrow and bones. It's currently improving Goa's physique." Kikik. At this moment Gu Zhaoxi laughed. Indeed, the young meridians and flesh in his body were gradually sublimating under the high fever. It felt as if he had been reborn, and he couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. Our son smiled. Mr. and Mrs. Gu came over, their faces full of happiness. In the days to come, Goa Gu's father was often abused by his mother's family. The reason was to amuse their son. A few more days passed. Mr. Gu brought back many medicinal herbs from the mountain. "Husband, why did you prepare so many medicinal herbs?" "I'm making a medicinal bath for our son. Starting from infancy, he'll strengthen his body." Therefore Gu Zhaoxi, who was just 6 or 7 days old, began to strengthen his body after cleansing the marrow and bones. The speed of his martial arts progress was the fastest among all reincarnations. He would even drool happily every time he slept. With such a father, there was no need to worry about not being strong in the future. However, in later contact he realized a problem. He didn't seem to have reincarnated in the upper realm this time, but in another world. That's not right. Every time he was reincarnated, he would accurately arrive in the upper realm. Why did he change the location this time? Gu Zhaoxi didn't think too much about it. Anyway, he was reincarnated into a good family, and his parents loved him very much. His future was definitely bright. However, he kept thinking late at night. Who was Gosheng? Why did he suddenly think of this name? Sect of all times. On the 7th day after Gu Zhaoxi left, a grand funeral was held. The powerhouses represented by the 10 great celestial sects stood in front of the mausoleum, with their heads lowered. The tombstone was engraved with the words, "Tomb of Elder Gu Zhaoxi of the Sect of all times," and a photo taken by Li Tiantian hung on it. This time, many martial artists came to pay their condolences. The Sect of all times earned tens of millions of magnetite. After the funeral ended, the various forces left. Jun Changshao sat in front of the tombstone and poured a bowl full of wine. He muttered to himself, "Brother, you died for the sake of the world this time. It's a meritorious deed. You'll definitely be reincarnated into a good family in your next life." Why did he say that? Because when he was drinking with Gu Zhaoxi, they talked about how he had never met a good family every time he reincarnated. As a brother of life and death, Jun Changshao naturally hoped that his brother would meet good parents this time. Creak! The next day, Jun Changshao pushed open the door and walked out energetically. Then he took a deep breath of fresh air. Gu Zhaoxi's death made him feel guilty for a long time. But since he was alive, he could not always be immersed in sorrow. He had to look at the future. On the training field, dynamic music rang out. Jun Changshao held the microphone and shook his head from time to time. Sometimes he leaned toward the camera, squatted down, and gestured with his hands. He gave an impromptu speech. Under his lead, the disciples did their morning exercises while foaming at the mouth. There was no longer any sadness on their faces. The system complained, The difference between not passing the first 7 days and passing the first 7 days is like heaven and earth. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. After the morning exercises, Jun Changxiao's unrestrained laughter came from the main hall. After walking out of his sorrow, he looked at the energy in his body and felt that he was at the peak of the revolving core realm. He could no longer control his emotions. The increase in realm was secondary. The best thing was that because the completion rate of Epic Mission 5 was 600%, he was rewarded with 10 million contribution points. Awesome. Too awesome. The mission reward was also very generous. All in all, because of the 600% completion rate, the benefits he received were definitely the best among all the epic missions. Wait a minute. Why is there 2,000 reputation points? Jun Changxiao opened the system interface and found that his reputation points, which should have been 0, were now at 2,000 points. The system said, Gu Zhaoxi blew up the invading warship and was remembered by the world. Therefore, the sect of all times received the corresponding reputation points. I see. Jun Changxiao's expression instantly became serious. He thought to himself, Brother, your death was glorious and worthy. How should he spend the 10 million contribution points? Very simple. Upgrade the disciple store. Jun Changxiao had this thought for a long time. Unfortunately, the 3 points had been emptied, and he had to use them again and again. It was hard to gather enough contribution points. Shwa. He opened the system interface and was about to upgrade the disciple store. Patriarch. Outside, Xiao Ziji shouted. A junior brother found an intact warship in the mountains. Chapter 1543. The disciples of the sect of all times recovered from the grief of their master's death and began to clean up the battlefield. After all, most of the wreckage of the fighter jets landed in the mountains. If they were not cleaned up together, it would easily cause environmental pollution. The order was given by Jun Changxiao. In fact, the other purpose of cleaning up the wreckage was to see if the Honorable Taixian could study it and find a way to make it. He was sure that there was no such thing as pure technology in the world of martial arts. The existence of warships and drones might be due to the fact that they had more advanced knowledge of formations. As expected, the intact drone that Ren Shan found was carried to the Hall of Formations. The Taixian and Zhen Dejuan carefully analyzed it and confirmed that there was a special formation inside, similar to the driving mechanism of Diablo. Honorable Master, Jun Changxiao asked, can you crack it? The Taixian remained silent for a while, then said, I'm afraid it'll take some time. The drone crashed due to a collision. Although there was a complete formation system inside, it was completely different from the concept he came into contact with. It's fine, Jun Changxiao said. Take it slow. This kind of technical work could not be done in one go. Of course, Jun Changxiao added. It would be best if we could find out the principle behind why it's uncontrollable. The drone was very fast, but Go Sheng was not interested. After all, it was not comparable to Diablo in terms of combat power. The only valuable thing was the drone. To put it bluntly, even if he mastered the core technology of manufacturing, Jun Changxiao would not consider mass production. If he had the ability to do so, he might as well build a group of mechs that could fight and fly. Therefore, there was no need to worry. Go Sheng would not be biased toward the upper realm and evolve from a world of martial arts to a world of technology. We even have mechs. The system roared. Are we not biased enough? The sect of all times was cleaning up the battlefield, and so were the martial artists from the upper realm. The warships had only invaded for a short period of time, and not many veins had been dug away. However, the damage to the ground and the environment was great. In particular, under the joint efforts of various experts, although they successfully destroyed a battleship, the price they paid was the sacrifice of dozens of truth-seeking realm cultivators and hundreds of core transformation realm cultivators. Putting aside the fact that Jun Changxiao had blown up 9 battleships at the last moment, the world of martial arts and the world of science and technology were clearly at a disadvantage. This was all thanks to the summons issued by the 10 great celestial sects. All the major sects had been dispatched in advance. If they had come unexpectedly, and the upper realm was not prepared, they would have definitely paid a greater price and suffered greater losses. Who should he thank? Many people immediately thought of thanking Jun Changshao and Gu Zhaoxi. In fact, the first one to thank was the demon ancestor. If he hadn't deliberately spread the news, the 10 great immortal sects wouldn't have sent out their top forces, and the major races wouldn't have left their homes. Therefore, initially, he had intended to cause trouble for the sect of all times. But in the end, he ended up doing the upper realm a huge favor. For a bad person to reach the fiend ancestor's level, he could be considered a good person. Of course, at this moment, after he learned about the invasion, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood on the spot. He had spread the news about the Constitution to kill that girl and make the sect of all times history. In the end, the tables had turned. One of the sect's elders had sacrificed himself for justice and made the sect the savior of the world. "My lord," the black-robed old man said helplessly, "the 10 great immortal sects and various other sects have all attended the funeral of the sect of all times elder. It seems that they're shaking hands and making peace." Puffed. Hearing this, the demon ancestor vomited blood. He didn't bring any fatal trouble to that fellow. Instead, he made friends with the 10 great immortal sects. This was really unacceptable. Don't worry. This time, Jun Changshao stood with the immortal sects in the face of the invaders. However, after this incident, he would definitely not forget their unyielding attitude of wanting to kill his disciple. Resentment. He would remember it. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the study and started thinking. The appearance of Shi Wu's mission not only gave him a generous reward, but it also revealed a lot of valuable information. For example, the 10 battleships that suddenly appeared came from the Star Spirit realm, numbered as the 3rd fleet. This definitely meant that there were also the 1st and 2nd fleets. They should be similar to the Interstellar Seafarer King, an organization that lives by robbing other planes all year round, the system said. Jun Changshao said, "Perhaps this so-called Star Spirit realm is actually a plane that lives by robbing others. Or perhaps they have such a high level of technology that they can travel across the universe and do whatever they want." If that's the case, the system asked, "Will they make a comeback?" Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, "That's what I'm most worried about, since the 3rd fleet could come. If the Star Spirit realm knew about it, they would definitely send another battleship for revenge." Fuck. Jun Changshao cursed and thought to himself, "I'm not the ruler of the upper realm. What am I worrying about?" He relied on soul bombs to blow up the 9 battleships. He definitely didn't think that if the enemy made a comeback, he would still be able to save the world. Not to mention, this was something that the top combatants of the 10 great immortal sects and other sects were most concerned about. As a rebirth realm cultivator, he didn't have the ability to do anything. Disciple, Jimren Tonggu came in with a bowl of fried rice, eating as he spoke. "I've just received notice from the 10 great immortal sects. In half a month, they will be holding a meeting in Holy City to discuss the recent invasion of the battleships." Jun Changshao wasn't surprised. If even someone of his level was considering whether or not the invaders would make a comeback, then the 10 great immortal sects wouldn't have the right to control the upper realm. At that time, Jinren Tonggu said, "Master will take you there." All right. Jun Changshao didn't refuse. After all, if he went to this kind of top combatant meeting as a lowly patriarch, he might have a chance to show off and make the author hit the word count. "Let's meet at the Extreme Cultivation Cave dwelling in 10 days. Master will be leaving first." As soon as Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano left the sect of all times, Li Fei Tianqi and the others also came to say goodbye. The sect was in trouble, so they came. Now that the danger was over, it was time for them to return to their respective territories and continue cultivating. "Go," Jun Changshao urged. "Bring more fried rice before you leave." Lu Wanshur said. Patriarch, before Senior Tonggu and Senior Chi left, they packed 1,000 plates of fried rice. "I'm afraid it's too late to prepare now." Jun Changshao rolled his eyes. "It's bad enough that my master and his good friend are staying in the sect of all times for a few days to freeload, but they even packed so much fried rice before leaving. Li Fei, Tianqi, and the others left under the patriarchs and their fellow sect members' send-off. Patriarch Jun Changshao was about to return to his residence when Zhen Dejuan's excited voice rang in his ears. It's cracked. The drone has been cracked. Swoosh. The scene changed, and they appeared outside the formation hall. At this moment, the tightly shut drone's cabin had been opened, and there was space for 2 or 3 people inside, surrounded by strange patterns and a radar-like device. Beep, beep, beep. A rhythmic sound was heard frequently. Kid. The Taishan old man pointed at the cockpit and said irritably, "This thing keeps beeping, it's really giving me a headache." Jun Changshao walked over and carefully observed, then suddenly frowned. This should be some kind of communication device for convenient communication. Bang! He raised the Desert Eagle and smashed the walkie-talkie. Beezty. After a short burst of sparks, the beeping sound stopped. Master. Jun Changshao looked around and said, "Carefully study the internal formation structure of this drone. Maybe you can master the drone technology." The Taishan old man almost cursed out loud. You suddenly destroyed the device. What if you destroyed the internal structure? How the hell am I supposed to study it? As a technical geek, after seeing the complete drone, he immediately fell in love, even to the point of forgetting to eat and sleep to study it, which was why he was able to open the cabin door in such a short time. Chapter 1544. The old man from Taishan had already become obsessed with the study of the unmanned aircraft. After that, he put all his focus on it and even stopped eating. The main reason was that the internal structure of the formation was too special. It was completely different from what he had learned before. It made him feel as if he was immersed in a sea of knowledge. If he could completely understand it, he would definitely benefit a lot. Of course, studying alone would definitely be slow. Therefore, Zhen Dejuan and Shengguan Xinyao were also in charge of assisting. 3 stooges were better than 1 zhuge liang. Finally, when Jun Changshao was about to set off for the extreme cave abode, the old man from Taishan successfully mastered the entire driver program. Buzz! In an instant the fighter jet lit up. Kid, the old man from Taishan said proudly. How is it? Jun Changshao walked in and saw all kinds of complicated instruments in operation. He gave a thumbs up and said, "Master is really amazing. You cracked it in such a short time." What a pity. The old man from Taishan shook his head and said, "I can only activate it, but I can't control it." He had only mastered the method of activating the fighter jet, but he couldn't control it and fight. As for the study of the formation, he needed time to crack it. Not bad. Jun Changshao stopped in the cockpit, and his expression suddenly became serious. After the fighter jet was activated, the radar-like screen gradually gathered a vast starry sky pattern, and there were obvious light spots that seemed to indicate the current location of the fighter jet. Could it be the universe where the upper realm is located? To be precise, the system said, it's a map of the stars. Jun Changshao sat down and carefully observed the situation. He pointed at the light spot and said, "This is where the upper realm is located." Buzz! Because it touched the light screen, the image instantly shrank, showing a structure similar to a continent. Damn! Jun Changshao said in surprise. There's a magnification function. He was just guessing just now, but now he was absolutely sure. Because according to the magnified image, the area where the light spot was indeed consistent with the environmental characteristics of the Aeon Immortal Mountain. Swish! It was as if Jun Changshao was playing with a tablet. He placed 2 of his fingers on the screen and made a small gesture. The map immediately entered a long-range view until it was completely shrunk. The images were displayed one by one with many words, such as Songhai series and Qingyuan series. Understood. The system said, the universe where the upper realm is located is very big, and it is divided into many galaxies. Jun Changshao could understand it. Furthermore, he deduced from the flickering of the fixed light spots. Judging from the current positioning, the upper realm belongs to the C system? That's right, the system replied. TSK. Jun Changshao said in surprise. Although there are no distance labels, from the degree of reduction, the distance between each star system is extremely far. Without advanced flight technology, you can forget about going to other galaxies for the rest of your life. The system said. Buzz. Buzz. At this moment, the upper left corner of the miniaturized space map flashed, and a voice sounded. This is the Starsoul World Mothership Headquarters, 3rd Fleet. Please respond quickly if you hear this. Please respond quickly if you hear this. The Taishan old man and Zhen Dejuan were shocked. Jun Changxiao was not only very calm, but also frowned. The area where the light flashed must be the source of the signal. Based on the map, it was thousands of miles away. To be able to send a message over, the level of technology was quite amazing. Schwa. Tapping on the upper left corner, it quickly enlarged. Soon, a landform larger than the upper realm appeared, and the words Starsoul World were written on it. Jun Changxiao said, So this is the Starsoul World. It's very far from the upper realm. The system said. How did they find it? Jun Changxiao continued to shrink the space map and explore other star systems. In the end, he found that many places were dark, so he was puzzled. This space map is incomplete? It's not loaded into the planes of other star systems? The host can try to see if there are other planes in the linear distance between the Starsoul World and the upper realm. The system said. Okay. Jun Changxiao shrank the map and then carefully searched. Some areas had, and some did not. This made him gradually realize a problem, and that's right. The system said. It's not that the space map is incomplete, but that many star systems have not been explored, so it can't provide detailed topographic data. Jun Changxiao fell into silence. He remembered the voice from the main battleship mentioning the name shuttle. Could it be that the other party did not control all the star systems and was in a state of unknown star exploration, so it accidentally appeared in the upper realm? Beep, beep, beep. At this time, a strange noise came from the map again. Jun Changxiao looked down and found that a few streaks of light had appeared out of nowhere in the Starsoul World, slowly moving downwards like ants. Shit! They couldn't have sent someone to find us, right? Should be. What made Jun Changxiao happy was that from the shrinking map, the speed of the streaks of light was too slow, so it would take a long time to reach the upper realm. The system said. At the current speed, it will take 3 years to reach the upper realm. So fast. Jun Changxiao was stunned, although he couldn't determine how far the two worlds were. They were separated by many star systems, so even the speed of light might not be able to reach it in 3 years. The system said. Although I don't want to discourage the host, I still have to say this. In this world where martial arts and technology combine, don't use the science of your previous world to measure it, because it's really too weak to withstand a single blow. Jun Changxiao couldn't deny this point. In his previous world, there were airplanes, rockets, and nuclear bombs. In some low-level martial arts worlds, they might be a little powerful, but in the Starfall continent, they were trash. The Starsoul World was obviously on the same level as the upper realm, maybe even higher. With the combination of martial arts and technology, not to mention the speed of light, even faster than the speed of light seemed normal. That was not the point. The point was, they might come again in 3 years. Just in time. The system said. Maybe the host can take the opportunity to save the upper realm and gain great benefits from it. Bullshit. Jun Changxiao roared. I don't have any soul bombs. Besides, even if there were, no one would be able to carry them and throw them 3 years later. Dealing with the 9 warships was due to the soul bombs, but the real success was due to Gu Zhaoxi's sacrifice. If they did it again and found the reborn body, he would only be 3 years old. What could a kid do? If Gu Zhaoxi, who was enjoying the crazy love of his parents in another world, remembered the memories of his previous life and heard Go Sheng's thoughts, he would definitely spit out the 9 spirits' sacred fruit in his mouth and roared. Brother, are you treating me like a bomb man? Beep. At that moment, words appeared on the screen. The content was the 4th Fleet has discovered a new world. Location and terrain are being recorded into the star map. Buzz. After a while, a corner of the Azure Sea system kept flashing. Jun Changshao habitually enlarged it, and soon, a continent's terrain appeared, labeled as the Mountain and Sea Realm. He held his chin and said, "As expected, there are other fleets in the Star Soul world, frantically exploring the surrounding unknown galaxies." In the small mountain village, Gu Goa lay in his mother's arms, absorbing the 9 spirits' sacred fruit juice that strengthened his dantian. He thought to himself, the Mountain and Sea Realm? The heaven and earth attributes here don't seem to be weaker than the upper realm. Son. At that moment, Gu Tianqing leaned over and flashed a jade token. He smiled and said, "Father has arranged a marriage for you. When you grow up, take this jade token to Shanghai City, and you will be the son-in-law of the realm lord of the Mountain and Sea Realm." Gu Zhaoxi frowned and began to cry. "This old man is too good to me. He has even arranged my marriage. But can't he ask for my opinion?" Gu Tianqing's mother frowned and said, "Marriage is an important matter. How can it be child's play?" Heh. Gu Tianqing grinned and said, "Wife, although the daughter of the Mountain and Sea Realm Lord is not a month old, her talent is extraordinary, and her future is limitless. She is a perfect match for our Goa. Is she beautiful? Her father is the most handsome man in the Mountain and Sea Realm, and her mother is the most beautiful woman in the Mountain and Sea Realm. Of course she is beautiful." Jie. Gu Zhaoxi stopped crying, and a bright smile appeared on his face. Chapter 1545. From the drone's star map, Jun Changshao learned about the new universe system. He also learned that the upper realm belonged to the sea system, and that there were many other worlds around it, such as the newly loaded Mountain and Sea Realm. 3 years. I must save the upper realm. Jun Changshao's expression became serious, and he exuded a great aura. In the lower realm, he regarded himself as a citizen of the falling star continent. In the upper realm, he naturally regarded himself as a citizen of the upper realm. If there was a crisis here, he would definitely save it. What kind of spirit was this? This was a kind of selflessness, a kind of, I can't make it up anymore. All in all, as long as he could gain reputation points, Jun Changshao would really save the world. The system asked curiously, "If there are no benefits, will the host step forward?" This question made Jun Changshao fall into a short silence. A moment later, he replied, "Take a guess. With the host's selfish personality, he probably won't be a hero. Do you think I'm that bad?" That's the truth. Jun Changshao was too lazy to argue with it. Some things couldn't be said with words. Besides, with his current strength, he didn't have the qualifications to be a hero. Without any benefits, saving the world was a great thing, and it was better to leave it to someone with the ability. As expected, the system said, "So fucking selfish." Jun Changshao left the formation hall and prepared to depart the next day to meet his master, Shinran Tonggu, in the extreme cave abode. Taixian continued to study the internal formation of the drone, and he was obsessed with it. It was undeniable that after Go Sheng ascended to the upper realm, he was badly tricked. However, after joining the Sect of all times and becoming the Grand Supreme Elder, he gained too many benefits. If I could do it all over again, I would still choose to take the blame for this kid. Phew. Outside the life and death realm, Yi Xingchen walked out panting. When the warship attacked, he didn't get as much screen time as Xiao Ziji, who was in the mech form. This made him a little unhappy, so he worked even harder in his cultivation. Unlike Jun Changshao, who was concerned with the upper realm, Anyo only had one thought, and that was to personally kill Empress Lingyao in a few years. Of course, recently, he had been thinking about whether he was too obsessed with the patriarch's help. Yi Xingchen, this isn't you. Crack. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists and secretly made up his mind. The path of martial arts ultimately depends on myself. I can't rely on others. This was Night Emperor. He was a proud and aloof man. Junior brother Yi, Li Qingyang walked over and said, "Before the patriarch left this morning, he upgraded the disciple mall. Do you want to take a look? Let's go." After saying that, he rushed to the mission pavilion as fast as he could. This was Anyo. He was a disciple of the Sect of all times, who was constantly interpreting the law of true fragrance. Jun Changshao ate the food cooked by Lu Wancha early in the morning and set off. Before he left, he spent 10 million contribution points to upgrade the disciples' store. Although his heart was in pain, as long as he could increase the overall strength of the sect, it did not matter even if he spent all his savings. The newly upgraded disciples' store was still placed in the mission pavilion, as the items inside required points from completing missions to purchase. At this moment, the mission pavilion was already packed with people. Damn! There are so many good items. Looking at the various items listed in the store, Su Xiaoma's eyes widened. In the past, the items sold in the store were nothing more than qi-gathering elixirs, cold-edge sword, and other low-level items. Now after the upgrade, the items sold were very high-level. For example, elixirs that could increase one's cultivation speed and dragon vein sword, that could increase one's combat strength. Of course, after the level of the items was greatly upgraded, the prices also increased by several times. Su Xiaoma chose a pair of shoes that could increase one's foot strength and athlete's foot. The price was 1,000 contribution points. He broke down on the spot and said, "This is too expensive." After completing the sect's missions, the disciples would also receive the corresponding contribution points. However, some of the easier missions only gave 10 contribution points. The most difficult missions only gave 100 contribution points. One pair of shoes was priced at 1,000 contribution points. It was equivalent to completing 10 high-star missions to buy it. Not only was the equipment expensive, but there were also many supplementary items. Su Xiaoma chose a few elixirs in succession. In the end, all of them were priced at 100 contribution points. This meant that to buy one elixir, one had to complete 10 low-level missions, or one high-level mission. Of course, he had already reached the revolving core realm, and had higher requirements for martial arts resources. The items he chose were very expensive. In fact, there were many items that were priced at 10 or 20 contribution points. They were very suitable for ordinary disciples. Furthermore, being expensive also had its effect. Su Xiaoma finally reluctantly bought the pair of athlete's foot shoes. After putting it on, he had a feeling of, "I am going to heaven." Swish, swish. On the main peak, light and shadow intertwined as fast as lightning. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After testing for a while, Su Xiaoma slid to a stop. He bent over with one hand on the ground, and said with a burning gaze, "This equipment is too smooth." As a speed-type player, a suitable pair of running shoes was very important. Ding! Ding! Yi Xingchen stood in front of the store. After careful selection, he bought a large number of elixirs, and then left without looking back. He explained to himself in his heart, the path of martial arts not only depends on oneself, but also on the assistance of elixirs. The upgrade of the disciple store would undoubtedly increase the overall strength of the sect in the future. However, the condition was that in order to obtain various resources and equipment, one had to work harder to complete missions. Therefore, a craze of completing missions would be set off again. Only with effort would there be rewards. As for Jun Changshao, at this moment, he was on the way to the extreme cave residence. Rows of Flowers was accompanying him. This time, you are going to the holy city to participate in the conference held by the 10 major immortal sections. The occasion is relatively grand and formal. It is reasonable to bring your wife along. The system said. Can you shut up? Jun Changshao said impatiently. All right. The system said. I won't disturb your romantic time with the two of you. Ding. System assistance temporarily turned off. Jun Changshao was drunk. To have such an unreliable system, he must have done something illegal in his previous life. In the control room, Rose of Flowers looked at the star map that she had copied not long ago and said in surprise, I didn't expect the Upper Realms universe system to be so big. Even if we use the ancient warship to go to the mountain and sea realm, it will probably take a few hundred years. Because the star map only explored one plane near the upper realm, it could only be used as a metaphor. I have no interest in going to other worlds. Jun Changshao said lightly. The main mission was to develop the sect in the upper realm, even if he already knew about the new universe system. Even if he really had the ability to travel the universe, Go Sheng would not be so bored as to wander around. Rose of Flowers said, "Every plane has different martial arts resources. Husband, aren't you tempted?" "Why?" Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, "Is your old habit acting up again? Are you planning to plunder other planes?" "It's just a casual remark," Rose of Flowers said with a smile. "With a husband who loves me so much, why would I go back to my old profession?" TSK. Jun Changshao turned and left. However, when they were about to reach the extreme cave residence, he sent a pile of gaudy clothes to Rose of Flowers' room and said with a calm expression, "Pay attention to your clothes on a solemn occasion. Don't embarrass the sect of all times." "What is this?" "Formal attire." Chapter 1546. Extreme Cave Abode. When Jun Changshao arrived, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were already wrestling with each other. The chess pieces on the stone platform were scattered all over the ground. Fine. One of them must be regretting his move. Go Sheng had cultivated in the extreme cave abode for 2 years, so he understood the two very well. As long as they played chess, they would definitely regret their move. They would quarrel at the beginning, and eventually fight. Then, they would continue to play chess the next day as if nothing had happened. "Husband," Rose of Flowers whispered, "what are the two seniors doing?" She had chosen a long blue dress. Her black hair fell naturally, and her noble empress aura was instantly set off. Cultivating. Fine. This kind of cultivation where one's arm and hair were pulled together was indeed a bit unconventional. Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano, who were in the middle of a fight, noticed Jun Changshao. They instantly sat down in front of the stone platform and put on a dignified appearance. But when they saw Rose of Flowers' attire, their eyes widened. Go Sheng had personally designed the dress with too many modern elements. Thus, these two old fellows who had lived for a long time had never seen it before. "Disciple," Jinren Tonggu said in a low voice, "your wife's attire is too gaudy." Masato Kitano said, "How improper." Old antiques like them found it hard to accept new things. Thus, they were opposed to modern attire. "Master," Jun Changshao didn't talk about the dress. Instead, he asked, "When are we leaving?" "Right now." "How are we going to get there?" "Of course, we're going on your ancient warship." "Master, there's not enough energy." "What do you mean? Do I still need energy to make my own warship?" "We can't fly without energy." "How much do you have?" 10,000 true stones each. In the end, after some discussion, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano each took out 10,000 true stones and boarded the ancient warship. In their hearts they were roaring, "This brat is too shameless." Whoosh! On the way to the holy city, Jinren Tonggu whispered, "Disciple, I heard that you've been married for a long time. Why don't you have a child yet?" This question was so sudden that Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. After some consideration he said, "My mind is now focused on my career." "Disciple," Jinren Tonggu said in a profound tone, "you're very young now, and you're not being punished by the heavenly Tao. You should think more about carrying on your ancestral line. Otherwise, you won't be able to have any children in the future." Jun Changshao broke down and said, "Shurzuan, you don't have to worry about this. You and your wife are both talented people. Your child will definitely be extraordinary. If you find it troublesome to take care of the child, it's fine. I'll take care of him after he's born. I guarantee that he'll be an indomitable figure." Jinren Tonggu said. Jun Changshao understood. This old man wanted to become a master grandpa. Let's not talk about whether they would have children or not. Even if they did have children in the future, they would definitely educate them themselves. How could they let others raise them? Fine. The system complained. If the host raises him, he'll definitely become the second most shameless person. "Disciple," Jinren Tonggu patted him on the shoulder and said, "Since you're already married, you must have children. Only then can you be considered a complete big family." Jun Changshao was speechless. Jinren Tonggu leaned over and said telepathically, "Or are you sick?" Plop. Jun Changshao collapsed on the deck. "Don't be afraid if you're sick. You'll be fine as long as you treat it. Don't think about living a carefree life only to face the rest of your life alone," Jinren Tonggu said. From his words, it seemed that he regretted not cherishing his youth. Sherzuan, I'm not sick, you're sick. Although the two of them were talking in private, Rose of Flowers occasionally overheard a sentence or two. Her cheeks gradually turned red. Holy City. Just from the name alone, one could tell that it was very holy. There were many cities in the upper realm. The Holy City was definitely one of the top cities. Whoosh! An hour later, the ancient warship flew over and hovered above the city, emitting an extremely arrogant aura. Some might say that Go Sheng would die if he didn't act pretentious. No, he had planned to land outside the city and enter obediently, but Jimren Tonggu said, "Disciple, just drive the ship in." "That's a little arrogant," Jun Changshao said. "Young man," Jinren Tonggu said, "that's what you should be." Masato Kitano, who was standing at the side, stared with wide eyes. This was completely different from the old man, who used to play chess and worry about his disciple causing trouble. No one dared to disobey Sherzuan's orders. Thus, Jun Changshao drove the ancient warship over in a grandiose manner. There was a rule against flying in the Holy City. Someone suddenly driving a warship and arrogantly naturally caused the martial artists in the city to be unhappy. But after confirming that it was an ancient warship, their attitude immediately turned into respect. The entire upper realm knew that the Sect of all times had sacrificed an elder to destroy 9 warships. Now that the patriarch was here, they naturally had to show respect. Moreover, there were 2 perfected persons standing on it. Whoosh! Whoosh! The ancient warship slowly landed on the plaza in the center of the city. TCH. Jun Changshao had just jumped down when a cold snort came from afar. He looked towards the source of the sound and saw Gu Hongjinren, who had once appeared in the Sect of all times, standing in the gazebo, his face full of disdain. Beside him stood a black-robed person. Because he was fully armed and had his head lowered, it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Jun Changshao instinctively released his spiritual sense to investigate, but was repelled by some force as soon as he got close. He thought to himself, quite mysterious. "Old Gu Hong," Jinren Tonggu said, "is this your disciple?" "That's right." Gu Hong Jinren raised his head, his tone and brows revealing a strong sense of pride. TSK, Jinren Tonggu said. "You even gave him the body-protecting mirror. Looks like you value this disciple a lot." The body-protecting mirror was Gu Hongjinren's signature high-grade true treasure. Not only did it have defensive properties, but it could also isolate one's realm aura, preventing others from prying into one's true strength. "Didn't you give the ancient warship to that kid as well?" Hearing this, Go Sheng wanted to cry. After acknowledging this master, although he had nurtured him for 2 years, he had not given him any true treasures. Even the ancient warship was something he had found in the realm battlefield. "What's wrong?" Jinren Tonggu raised an eyebrow and said, "You're waiting here for the 2 of us to exchange pointers?" "That's exactly what I was thinking," Gu Hongjinren said calmly. "Disciple," Jinren Tonggu said, "let's fight." Jun Changshao said seriously, "Master, I'm here to participate in the meeting, not to fight. Besides, if we're going to fight, we'll have to wait until the appointed date." "Kid," Gu Hongjinren said calmly, "this is just a sparring session. We'll decide the winner on the appointed date." Jun Changshao glanced at Jinren Tonggu. Seeing that his expression was unusually serious, he could only shrug and say, "If that's the case, then let's fight." "Husband," Rose of Flowers said telepathically, "this person is a bit strange. Don't let your guard down." TSK. Jun Changshao walked out nonchalantly. Just as he steadied himself, the black-robed man suddenly appeared in front of him. Not good. Boom! In the spacious plaza, there was a sudden explosion, and the stone slabs began to crack. In the area where the shockwaves were roaring, the black-robed man stood where Jun Changshao was. With him as the center, the ground caved in, forming a circular crater that was several meters wide. Where was Go Sheng? He was lying a few dozen meters away. He raised his hand with difficulty and gave a thumbs up, saying weakly, You won, brother. Can't your acting be any more fake?" Chapter 1547. There was a kind of acting called acting like what one was acting, and there was another kind of acting called eyesore. Today, Jun Changshao had successfully demonstrated what it meant to be unbearable to watch, because it was simply too fake. Zhenren Tonggu almost vomited blood. What did this kid mean? Was he trying to embarrass himself? Jun Changshao's intention was actually very simple. He did not want to fight because there were more important things to deal with, such as informing the 10 great immortal sects that there would be a strong enemy 3 years later. But since his master wanted him to fight with Gu Hongzhenren's disciple, then he would let him. It was just a spar anyway. It did not matter whether he won or lost. Gosheng had really changed. If he had just been reborn into the lower realm, he would definitely be happy to fight if his strength allowed it. Of course, this black-robed man's strength was indeed not bad. It could be seen from the speed of his charge that he was looking forward to the battle of the promise of 10 years. Despicable guy. Gu Hongzhenren's face was gloomy. You deliberately threw in the towel. Are you looking down on my disciple? If he had defeated Jun Changshao fair and square, he would be very pleased. But this eyesore made him feel like he had been humiliated. Senior, please don't misunderstand, Jun Changshao said. I just don't want to delay the meeting that is about to start. Ding! Side quest triggered. He pulled open the data panel. The side quest was spar with Gu Hongzhenren's disciple and win. However, Jun Changshao stood up and patted the dust off his body. His expression and tone were extremely serious. If you really want to spar, then I will accompany you to the end. At this time, no matter how big the world is, it is not as important as my mission. Hitue. The system could not help but spit out. Before there was a mission, Jun Changshao did not care. Now that there was a mission, he had to treat it seriously. So when the two stood in the square again, the atmosphere became serious. All the warriors realized that there was going to be a fight, so they all gathered around to watch the show. Fighting was prohibited in the sacred city, but since it was the two disciples of the immortal, they could only turn a blind eye. Come. Jun Changshao hooked his finger. This time, the black-robed man didn't attack immediately, because his attack just now was fast and fierce. But it didn't hurt him at all, so his strength should be extraordinary. You're not coming? Let me do it. Shua. Jun Changshao rushed over with his unpredictable movements. Gu Hongzhenren asked in astonishment, Ling Xiao after image art? How did this kid learn it? Boom. Boom. At this moment, the crisscrossing shadows of fists filled the square. The more he looked, the more surprised he was. Because the moves that the opponent used were all from the 7 sages of Ethereal Hall. A satisfied smile appeared on Zhenren Tonggu's face. He had taught this kid in the extreme cave abode for 2 years, and the only thing that made him feel gratified was that he had learned many of his good friend's martial skills, and he was able to comprehend them perfectly. Boom! Boom! The black-robed man wasn't weak either. He easily dispelled the fist imprints. The two of them fought at close range, and from time to time at long range. The battle scene was very exciting. The onlookers were a little dumbfounded. The two of them weren't fighting a battle of life and death, but it was very pleasing to the eye. Artistic. Too artistic. Boom. Jun Changshao and the black-robed man punched each other, and he took a few steps back with a smile on his face. After coming to the upper realm, he had always been dedicated to the development of the sect. Even if there was a battle, it was nothing more than relying on cheating. Today's battle with this person was undoubtedly the most formal and formal. Friend. Jun Changshao rolled up his sleeves and said, I'm going to get serious. TSK. Gu Hongzhenren sneered. He could tell from the short exchange that his disciple was evenly matched with the opponent. Even if he got serious, what could he do? Could he go to heaven? Whoosh. At this moment, Jun Changshao gathered the power of true spirit in his palm, and used the sect's mainstream martial skill, the sky-crossing palm print. Spiritual energy whistled out and quickly gathered in midair, to form a palm print with an explosive momentum. The palm print wasn't too big at first, but when it pressed toward the black-robed man, it suddenly expanded infinitely, like a small mountain falling from above. Gu Hongzhenren was dumbfounded. Zhenren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were also stunned. The moment Jun Changshao used the sky-crossing palm print, the 3 top experts realized that he had reached the peak of the revolving core realm. Just a moment ago, He was only at the 6th or 7th revolving core realm. How did he suddenly reach the peak? The black-robed man with the protective mirror was difficult to see through whether it was his cultivation or appearance. As for Jun Changxiao, who was using the hidden cultivation technique, as long as he didn't deliberately release his cultivation, no one could see through him. Competing in concealment? Sorry, I'm better at concealing myself. Whoosh whoosh. The sky-crossing palm print formed by the power of true spirit pressed down with an extremely powerful momentum. Facing such a martial skill from the peak of the revolving core realm, the black-robed man could only stand there and receive it miserably, because he couldn't dodge or move. However, just as the palm print was about to press down, it suddenly stopped in front of his head, and the shock wave directly sent him flying. Gu Hongzhenren's face was ashen. Just the momentum of the palm print was enough to send his disciple flying. This was too much of a blow to his self-esteem. The black-robed man retreated dozens of steps before stabilizing himself with difficulty. Then, he cupped his hands and said in a hoarse voice, "You win, I lose." Ding! Side mission completed. Obtained 1 million contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points. 194,000. It was completed just like that. This was simply a free point question. Jun Changxiao removed the sky-crossing palm print and cupped his hands. Thank you for letting me win. Actually, if he had attacked just now, the black-robed man would definitely have been severely injured. However, he chose to go easy on him, because Gu Hongzhenren had helped him in the sect of all times before. Jun Patriarch, the black-robed man said, on the appointed day, you and I will fight again. This guy's voice was still very hoarse, and it sounded like he was doing it on purpose. I don't think it's necessary. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, whether it's sparring or fighting, as long as my opponent loses to me, there is no possibility of a comeback. These words were arrogant. However, looking at Go Sheng's growth, this was indeed the case. In the beginning, there were many martial artists who were stronger than him. However, as long as they were surpassed, they were destined to be left in the dust. They could only stand at the foot of the mountain and look up at the imposing figure. For example, Qin Haoran of the Grand Qi sect. When Jun Changxiao was rising, he made things difficult for him. What about now? He had become the most insignificant existence among the masses. On the other hand, Go Sheng had soared and ascended to the upper realm. He began to compete with higher forces and continued to write his own legend. Me, Go Sheng, I allow you to be stronger than me. However, as long as I improve, it will be difficult for you to surpass me. Is that so? The black-robed man said with a faint smile, as if he did not approve of Jun Changxiao's arrogance. However, he seemed to be certain that he could defeat him on the appointed day. Disciple, Gu Hongzhenren said coldly, the winner can only be proven with actions. There is no need to waste words with him. Let's go. Tui. Zhenren Tonggu spat out a mouthful of phlegm without any manners. My fucking disciple won the sparring match. If his disciple won, who knows how smug he would be. Watching Gu Hongzhenren and his disciple disappear from sight, Jun Changxiao thought to himself, why did this guy hide himself so well? The system said, maybe he's an acquaintance. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, after being healed by you, he definitely wouldn't recognize him. He would not forget that this guy once said that the 10th person with the innate demonic body might be an acquaintance. In the end, he was just a passerby. Although he and the others had joined the sect of all times, they did not deserve to have a name. This time, I'm sure. The system said, he must be an acquaintance. Otherwise, he would not deliberately hide his appearance and change his voice. Chapter 1548. When Jun Changxiao defeated the black-robed man, not only was Zhenren Tonggu happy, but he was also shocked by his cultivation base. On the way to the city magistrate's mansion, he asked, Apprentice, did you gain a deeper understanding of the secret manual? Is that why you broke through from the 6th revolution to the peak? Years ago, Go Sheng had made up a lie, saying that he was cultivating some sort of martial art, and that his cultivation base had been suppressed. Only by gaining enlightenment could he break through. There was no other way. How else could he explain it? Now that his master was asking him about it, Jun Changxiao's answer would definitely be, "That's right." At this point, he had no choice but to continue making things up. There was no way that Jun Changxiao would say that he had reached the peak, because he had sacrificed his sworn brother. When he thought about Gu Xiaoxi, Go Sheng's heart ached. "My dear brother, have you been reborn? Have you been born into a good family?" Back in the mountain and sea realm, Gu Xiaoxi lay in a medicinal bath. His meridians were being nourished, and a look of bliss appeared on his face. With such good parents, I'll have to work a few thousand years less. Why did he say that? Because he had drunk the milk of the 9 dragons' flood dragon, eaten the juice of the 9 spirits' sacred fruit, and now had all sorts of precious materials nourishing his body. Gu Xiaoxi, who was less than a month old, had undergone a massive transformation. If he started cultivating the Tao of martial arts, he would definitely soar. Furthermore, his father and mother were peak experts, and had all sorts of profound martial arts. He didn't need to cultivate any of the previous ones. Wouldn't it be wonderful if he could just learn something more advanced? The more Gu Xiaoxi thought about it, the happier he became. Good things didn't last long. A few days later, a guest came to visit, and he burst into tears. It was the realm lord and his wife who had come to visit the Gu clan couple. No, they weren't humans. They were beasts with human bodies and crocodile heads. In human terms, they were absolutely hideous. Were they the number 1 handsome man and number 1 beautiful woman in the mountain and sea realm? "Dad, are you blind? Are you trying to screw me over?" The reason the realm lords of the mountain and sea realm had come to visit was, of course, to see their future son-in-law. They had taken a liking to him at first glance, and had begun to discuss when they would get married. In the end, they had settled on 16, which was the legal age for marriage in the realm. Hearing them talking about his wedding day, Gu Xiaoxi was so angry that he cried. If he had the ability to speak, he would have said loudly, "I object to this marriage." There were countless examples of humans and demons getting married, and he himself was not against it. However, if his parents looked like this, his daughter would definitely not be any better. If he really got married in the future, wouldn't he fall into hell? No. When he grew up, he would run away. Mr. and Mrs. Gu were worried sick about their son's marriage. Gu Xiaoxi, who was not even a month old, was already thinking of running away from the marriage. Holy City, City Lord's mansion. When Jun Changxiao walked in with his master and senior Qi Yi, many experts with powerful auras gathered outside the courtyard. Senior Tonggu, Senior Qi Yi, the various major forces and independent cultivators all cupped their fists, their eyes shining with admiration. When they saw Jun Changxiao, they hurriedly cupped their fists and smiled. Jun Patriarch. Without the previous invasion, Go Sheng would have been nothing more than Jimren Tonggu's disciple in the eyes of the various cultivators. Now, however, they truly regarded him as an important figure. Jun Changxiao had been a patriarch for a long time. Since he had come to such an occasion, he naturally had to be smooth and slick. Thus, he greeted everyone with a smile on his face. He was now as humble as he had been arrogant earlier. The most eye-catching person was still the Rose of Flowers, who was accompanying Jun Changxiao. After all, the new clothes she was wearing were simply too eye-catching. There were many women in the city lord's mansion, and all of them were quite good-looking. However, compared to the Rose of Flowers, they were completely crushed. The only one who could stand up to her was probably Empress Ling Yao. Jun Changxiao straightened his back. Wasn't the reason why he had prepared this dress for this woman? Although Go Sheng could be very despicable at times, he still cared about his reputation when attending such a grand occasion. The Rose of Flowers wore a long blue dress, and it completely overshadowed all the other women present. This greatly satisfied his vanity. Everyone. At this moment, the city lord of the sacred city walked out and cupped his fists with a smile. The meeting will begin tomorrow morning. Your accommodations have been arranged. Please follow the servants. Thank you for your hospitality, city lording. Everyone cupped their fists and followed the servants to their accommodations. Jun Changxiao also followed. However, his accommodations were different from his master's. so he was arranged to stay in the southern wing. June Patriarch. The soldier in charge of leading the way led them to a courtyard with a good environment, and said respectfully, "This will be the room that you and your wife will be staying in for the time being. Please let me know if you need anything." Jun Changshao asked, "Just one bedroom?" This sentence stunned the soldier. He said weakly, "Jun Patriarch and your wife need 2 bedrooms. Jun Changshao also realized that his question was a little stupid, so he waved his hand and said, "There's nothing else. You can leave. Goodbye." After the soldier left, Rose of Flowers smiled and said, "Who's sleeping in the bedroom?" Although the 2 of them were already husband and wife, whether it was in the Soul continent or in the Sect of all times, they had always lived in their own courtyards and had never interacted with each other. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect felt that it was very strange, but they did not dare to ask. Jinren Tonggu was puzzled because he heard about it. Why were the husband and wife still living in separate rooms? Thinking about it, he wondered if his disciple was sick. Here came the question. Who told him about this? Su Xiaoma expressed that he would not take the blame for this. Jun Changshao said lightly, "I still have to cultivate." "Okay." Rose of Flowers looked at the sky and walked into the bedroom. "Then I'll go to sleep." Creak. The door opened and closed. Jun Changshao stood in the courtyard and felt the cold wind blowing. He shook his head and said, "She's not polite at all." The courtyard and rooms arranged by the city lord could barely make do for a night, but Gosheng still chose to sit in the stone pavilion and cultivate. He thought of the black-robed man he met earlier. He did not care why the other party hid his appearance and changed his voice. What he cared about was that when he was serious about the fight, this guy restrained himself. In the west wing, Gu Hongjinren stood in front of the window of the study and looked at the scenery outside. He said, "Are you confident that you can defeat that kid on the appointed day?" He was also one of the participants, so he was arranged to have his own room. "Before I see him, your disciple is not sure," the black-robed man in front of the door said. "After fighting with him today, I'm 90% sure." These words sounded very arrogant, but when they came out of his mouth, they sounded very calm, as if it was a matter of course. "Ha ha ha." Gu Hongjinren laughed and said, "I like your confidence, so I didn't hesitate to sacrifice my life to bring you up from the mortal world. Master, please rest assured." The black-robed man raised his head slightly, and the corner of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a canine tooth. He said, "On the appointed day, your disciple will definitely defeat him." Achoo. Sitting in the stone pavilion, Jun Changshao sneezed and rubbed his nose. He said, "The wind is a bit strong." Chapter 1549. The next day, in the main hall of the city lord's mansion, powerhouses from various sects and clans entered one after another and sat according to the name cards placed on the table. Needless to say, the conference this time was quite professional. The tables and chairs inside could accommodate all the people present. Tsk tisk. Jun Changshao followed his master into the hall, and as he looked at all the powerful cultivators gathered here, he sighed inwardly. Those who are able to participate in this competition are all important figures in the upper realm. At this moment, Gu Hongjinren walked in with his disciple. He glanced coldly at Jinren Tonggu, then arrogantly found his seat and sat down. Jun Changshao had nothing to do, so he took a closer look at the black-robed man. However, due to the protection of the treasure, he could not see his appearance at all, let alone the level of his realm. One word: mysterious. The more mysterious he was, the more curious he would be. Therefore, Jun Changshao had been wondering what was so special about this guy. "Disciple," Jinren Tonggu said telepathically. "This disciple of Gu Hong's was brought up from the lower realm. I heard that he's the child of the dimension." "Child of the dimension?" Jun Changshao said in surprise. "That's quite impressive." Although the lower realm could not be compared to the upper realm, since he had the identity of the child of the dimension, he was definitely considered a genius. Wait a minute. Strictly speaking, he was the ruler of the falling star continent. If he had children in the future, would they not be the child of the dimension? Sigh. Since he was not the son of the celestial emperor, He would work hard to let his descendants enjoy a prominent identity. The premise is, the system complained. The host has to be capable. How do you know I can't? Can you? Why can't I? Fine, you can. In such a solemn conference, Gosheng almost quarreled with the system. Of course, while Jun Changshao was observing the black-robed man, the black-robed man was also observing him. However, because he hid it too well, he could not see the changes in his facial expression. About a moment later, the powerhouses represented by the 10 great immortal sects walked in. Among them, there were elders who had gone to the sect of all times before. There were also elders who he did not recognize. Their auras were strong, and it was obvious that they were not ordinary. This meeting in the holy city was initiated by the 10 great immortal sects. So when they appeared, the big shots of the various sects and forces all stood up to welcome them. Jun Changshao did not stand up. To tell the truth, he didn't have a good impression of the 10 major celestial sects. If it wasn't for the fact that it concerned the safety of the upper realm, he wouldn't have bothered to participate. Jinren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and Guhong Jinren did not stand up either. The various sects and powers had to act according to the immortal sect's wishes, but these rogue cultivators didn't care at all. As if they understood the personalities of these people, although the 10 great immortal sects were displeased, they didn't say anything. After taking their seats, they announced the official start of the meeting. Since it was a meeting, there must be a theme. The main topic of the discussion this time was where the 10 warships came from, and whether they would still invade the upper realm. Everyone, Elder Zeng of the Lingtian immortal sect moistened his throat, and was about to speak, but he was stopped by Jun Changshao. The 10 warships came from the Star Spirit realm. This realm is extremely proficient in the Tao of array formations. They can travel from the distant universe to our upper realm. As soon as these words were said, everyone started to discuss. Star Spirit realm? I don't think I've heard of it. TSK. The upper universe is so big. Not to mention the Star Spirit realm, even the mountain and sea realm of the same system. You probably haven't heard of it. Jun Patriarch. Elder Zeng said. How do you know? Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and tapped his fingers on the table. He said, among the fighter jets that flew out of the warships, one of them happened to land in the ancient immortal mountain. My array formation hall cracked it and obtained a lot of information. Are you sure? The powerhouses of the 10 great immortal sects expressed their doubts. You don't have to believe me. Jun Changshao put his hands on the table and leaned forward. He said with the most serious expression, but there's bad news that I need to tell you. In 3 years, they will come again, and there will be more of them than before. The invasion of the Star Spirit realm was related to the entire upper realm, so he would not hide it. After all, when the day came, he would have to rely on the 10 great immortal sects and other forces to fight against them. If he had the strength, he would help. If not, he would just be a bystander. Elder Zeng looked at the powerhouses of the 9 great immortal sects with a worried look in his eyes. In fact, before the meeting was held, the 10 great immortal sects had sat together to discuss and even speculate whether the invaders would come again. Now the patriarch of the sect of all times had given a specific time, not to mention whether it was reliable or not. They had to prepare for a rainy day to prevent disaster from happening and not be able to deal with it immediately. Of course, Jun Changshao said, at present the biggest threat to the upper realm is the newly resurrected demon ancestor. Even the invasion of the foreign warships is probably related to that guy. What do you mean? Elder Zeng asked. The experts from the various factions also turned their gazes over. This meeting was supposed to focus on the 10 great immortal sects, but Jun Changshao beat them to it. He mentioned the Star Spirit realm and the impending danger in the next 3 years, instantly becoming the most dazzling presence in the meeting. The sudden invasion of the foreign forces coincided with the resurrection of the demon ancestor. If the two are not related, do you think it's possible? Everyone fell silent. Indeed, the demon ancestor had just been resurrected and the upper realm was invaded. It was too much of a coincidence. According to the documents I've checked, Jun Changshao said, The demonic tribe was not part of the myriad tribe system in the beginning, but they suddenly appeared in the upper realm. I'm afraid there's something fishy going on. June Patriarch, you mean? Elder Zeng said with a serious expression. The demonic tribe came from the star spirit realm? The sudden invasion of the foreign warships was caused by the demon ancestor? It's possible, Jun Changxiao said. Great, a bad-tempered powerhouse said angrily. The demon ancestor and his demonic tribe are spies who sneaked into the upper realm. No wonder they were so ambitious 100,000 years ago. Although they were resurrected, their vitality must have been greatly damaged. The demonic region was sealed by the ancestors. They knew they couldn't beat us, so they could only ask for help? Zhenren Tonggu said. Jun Changxiao secretly praised his master. He was just leading the demon ancestor on. He quickly came up with a reasonable explanation. There was no prior rehearsal, but they could cooperate tacitly. During this time, Gou Sheng had been thinking about a problem. How did the whole world know that Yao Minjing had a complete innate holy demonic body? It could be said that it spread throughout the upper realm in just a day. Someone was obviously paying for a water army to lead the way and deliberately target the sect of all times. Who was it? The most suspicious person was definitely the demon ancestor. After the girl inherited the whole body, it meant that he had nothing left. It was normal for him to be angry and play some tricks. Although there was no absolute evidence, Jun Changxiao was certain that the demon ancestor was behind it. He had to let him know that if he played tricks with him, he would play tricks with him. That's right. Elder Zeng slammed the table and said with a cold gaze. The most important thing now is to find the demon ancestor. This spy is the biggest threat to the upper realm. The demon ancestor, who was recuperating, would vomit blood if he knew that Jun Changxiao was deliberately leading the way, and he was instantly labeled as a spy. Everyone, Jun Changxiao said again. The resurrection of the demon ancestor has always been secretly planned by the Buried Moon Pavilion. According to the Sect of All Times Intelligence, this organization has a very important branch in the Sea King City. Yao Minjing was controlled by the heavenly vision earlier. This grudge would not be forgotten. If they wanted to play tricks, the Buried Moon Pavilion would definitely be involved. If the 10 major celestial sects could get rid of them together, it would undoubtedly be the best. Kill with a borrowed knife. I, Jun Changxiao, know how to play this game too. Chapter 1550. The meeting ended. To be exact, it was Jun Changxiao who had forcefully shortened the time. The 10 great immortal sects immediately deployed a large number of people to Sea King City to thoroughly investigate the Buried Moon Pavilion and the demon ancestor's hiding place. The Buried Moon Pavilion had always existed and had always been under the responsibility of the Realm Hall. However, this time it involved a spy and the safety of the entire upper realm, so they had to be serious enough. Jun Changxiao didn't participate because since it was a borrowed knife, he definitely didn't need to do it himself. He just needed to quietly wait for the results. Disciple. The next day Zhenren Tonggu said, Aren't we leaving? Sacred City is one of the largest cities in the upper realm. Since we're here, we have to stroll around for a few days. Jun Changxiao said. Zhenren Tonggu wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Masato Kitano's gaze. He transmitted his voice. Your disciple and your disciple's wife finally came out. Naturally, we have to enjoy our two-person world. That made sense, Zhenren Tonggu said. All right then, we'll go back to the extreme cave abode first. After watching the two leave, Jun Changxiao said lightly, Let's go. Where to? Rose of Flowers asked. Shopping. Accompanying a girl shopping was such a romantic thing. But when it came out of Jun Changxiao's mouth, it was really full of steel. Of course, a woman like Rose of Flowers who had fought all over the world definitely didn't have the hobby of shopping. However, since her husband said so, she could only leave the city lord's mansion with him. As a first-class city, there were many tourists in Sacred City. The streets were very lively, and the sound of peddling and discussing was endless. Sister Jiao, a young man walked to the jewelry shop and smiled. What style do you like? I'll buy it for you. The girl behind lowered her head and said with a red face, Brother Xian, You've already bought me several. Don't spend any more money. No. The man called Brother Xian said. My future wife must wear the best jewelry. This kind of public display of affection attracted the contempt of a group of single dogs. There might be many readers among them, and their eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. Boss. Older Brother Xian chose an exquisite ring and said, This? I'm very sorry. A voice came from behind. I've bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop. You can go to the next shop. Buy all of them? So rich? Older Brother Xian turned his head to look and saw a handsome young man standing behind him. Beside him stood a beautiful woman dressed in strange clothes. So beautiful. Jiao Mei said in a low voice, feeling ashamed of her own inferiority. It was Jun Changxiao and Rose of Flowers. One was handsome, and the other was beautiful. They immediately became the absolute focus of the street. Pa! Gou Sheng casually threw a spatial ring on the counter and said with an indifferent expression, There are 1,000,000 profound stones inside. Is it enough to buy all the jewelry? The boss took the ring in surprise and used his spiritual sense to check it. He quickly smiled and said, It's enough, it's enough. Friend. Older Brother Xian took a few steps back, cupped his fists and said, Generous, admirable. This was a polite remark. Translated into another way, it meant brother. You really put in a lot of effort to pick up girls. Your younger brother admit defeat. After buying all the jewelry, Jun Changxiao turned and left. On the way, Rose of Flowers asked in confusion, Why did you buy me so much jewelry? Of course I'm wearing it. Jun Changxiao said, Are you going to use it as a medicinal plant? Rose of Flowers didn't say anything, but her heart was filled with sweetness. I bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop and gave it to you. My husband loves me very much. Actually, she didn't have the habit of wearing jewelry. She even felt uncomfortable wearing earrings or necklaces, so she didn't usually wear any jewelry. Jun Changxiao didn't notice at first. It wasn't until he arrived at the city lord's mansion and saw many women dressed luxuriously with jewelry all over their bodies that he realized that dresses alone weren't enough. They also needed jewelry to set off their temperament. Careless, negligent. Therefore, the first thing he did when he came shopping was to buy jewelry. He bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop directly. This operation was a bit like a domineering CEO. He planted roses, moved the sea of flowers, and Gou Sheng did something similar to iron. If you think it's normal, then it's right. Because people change, and change requires a process. When you get used to it, it's the same as going through the process. Take Yi Xingchen for example. From being arrogant when he first entered the sect to compromising and becoming a disciple, never taking the sect as an honor, to living and dying with his fellow sect members now, the change was not small. Some people might think at first, how could the dignified Knight Emperor put down his pride after committing to Iron Bone? By the time the plot reached this point, perhaps no one would think about it anymore. They might even think that Knight Emperor integrated into the sect as a matter of course, for various reasons and various experiences. Jun Changxiao stayed in the holy city for 2 days and set off with Rose of Flowers to return to the sect. The 10 immortal sects were intensifying the investigation of Buried Moon Pavilion. The entire upper realm suddenly became serious after the meeting ended. After returning to the sect of all times, Jun Changxiao also began to prepare actively. After all, the star spirit world would invade 3 years later. If the immortal sects and other major forces could not resist, he would definitely need strength to protect the sect. Of course, Gou Sheng was not particularly anxious, because he had many trump cards that he had not revealed. For example, the 1,000,000 Devil Tribe soldiers in the forest. Speaking of soldiers, Jun Changxiao was reminded of the first revolution pill. If this type of pill was refined successfully, all the disciples would reach the first revolution realm. Their battle strength would definitely soar. Hall Master Miao. Jun Changxiao came to the poison refinery hall and asked, How's the research going? Miao Saifeng said, We've refined many types of antidote pills, but we'll only know if they're effective after consuming them. There were too many poison ingredients in the first revolution pill. Even as a poison expert, she could not be sure if the antidote pills refined had the effect of detoxification. She had to test it personally to know. All right, Jun Changxiao said. I'll call Du Hongqian and the rest over to refine this pill for testing. Who's going to test the pill? My brother. When Go Sheng blurted out this sentence, he immediately realized that Gu Xiaoxi had already left. The 7th day of the month was over. If there were any corpses left, they should have started to rot by now. Wait a minute. His brother had left, who was going to test the pill. When Gu Xiaoxi was around, he did not feel that it was important. After he left, he realized that without a reincarnation spirit, there were many things that could not be done. In the small mountain village, Gu Tianxing held an exquisite little box and shook it in front of his son. He grinned and said, My son, father has prepared a quick growth pill for you. When you grow up, take it, and you'll definitely be able to increase your realm quickly. Bang! Mother Gu kicked over and scolded. This pill is extremely poisonous. If you dare to give it to my son, I'll fight you to the death. Wife, Gu Tianxing fell a few dozen meters away and said, I've already neutralized the poison in this pill. After saying that, he fainted gloriously. Gu Xiaoxi sighed secretly. Poor father. A few days later, Feng Gui Chun, Du Hongqian, and the others put down the business of the eternal pill store and gathered at the Sect of all times. They successfully refined a batch of first revolution pills with the materials provided by the medical hall and poison refinery hall. Everyone, Jun Changxiao said solemnly, who's going to test the pill? Chapter 1551. The One Revolution Quick Success Pill was refined. However, the toxicity was too strong, so someone had to test it personally. There were many tests to be done, because Hall Master Miao had prepared more than 10 antidotes. I'll do it. Outside the hall, Lu Qianqian, dressed in white, walked over. She had been training in the Nine Heavens mystery realm all this time, so she rarely appeared in front of her fellow disciples. Eldest senior sister, Li Qingyang said, Let me do it. I'll do it. Su Xiaoma took a step forward. The other disciples expressed their willingness to test the poison themselves. If it were any other sect, many disciples would be very hesitant after learning that the pill was refined from various poisons and had a high level of toxicity. Sorry, the Sect of all times was different. This was a sect that was both silly and happy. They did not care about life and death in such matters. Anyo, Jun Changxiao said, What about you? Yi Xingchen fell silent. As a core disciple, he should have expressed his stance earlier, but he did not say anything. After a while, Yi Xingchen said, If this pill can poison someone to death, can I not test it? Reason, Jun Changxiao said. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists and said with a cold gaze, I haven't taken my revenge. Even though the One Revolution Quick Success pill would not kill someone, it would have unpredictable negative effects due to the toxicity. Hence, he did not want to waste time on this. If there was no grudge between them, Anyo would have taken the pill without hesitation and shouted to his fellow disciples, I'll test the pill. Don't snatch it from me. Jun Changxiao stood up and picked up the pill. He smiled and said, Of course I have to do this personally for such a dangerous matter. He was very pleased that the disciples were fighting to be the first to test the poison. Hence, the most dangerous thing was still for the parents to do. The children's mission was to grow up healthily. Patriarch. Miao Saifeng frowned and said, The toxicity is very strong. Don't be rash. Yes, Elder Wei said. You are the patriarch of the Sect of all times. Nothing can happen to you. Rose of Flowers stood next to him. She did not stop her husband from testing the poison, because she knew that he valued his disciples very much, and would not let them test the poison. I've made up my mind, Jun Changxiao said. Everyone fell silent. After spending so much time with the patriarch, everyone knew what his temper was like. Raw. Take it with warm water. The poison will be milder. What about wine? That should work. Qingyang, bring the wine. Hua hua hua. A bowl of drunken dreaming was served. Jun Changxiao raised his hand confidently and looked at the worried disciples. He said, It's not like you're going to die for sure. Smile for me. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma forced themselves to smile. Their expressions were uglier than crying. Wuxia. Lu Wanshur immediately cried and said, Patriarch, if anything happens to you, I will serve you many delicious Chinese delicacies in front of your grave every year on this day. Jun Changxiao's face was crumbling. This lass had already grown into a young lady, but her words were still so childish. The atmosphere in the hall was very sorrowful. The higher-ups and disciples were all silently praying in their hearts that the patriarch would be safe and sound after testing the poison with his body. Miao Saifeng carefully checked the refined antidote pills and arranged them neatly on the table. She said, There are numbers on it. After the host consumes the elixir pills, you must take them in order. Jun Changxiao nodded. On the other side, Sun Bukong and his medical team were already in position. They were trying to provide timely treatment if the patriarch had an accident. Wuxia. Lu Wanshur wiped her tears and choked. Second senior brother, should we send someone to clean up the spirit beast hall in advance? Jun Changxiao almost fell. In order to prevent this lass from continuing her childish words, he quickly held the bowl with one hand and picked up the elixir pills with the other. Patriarch. All the disciples cried out in grief, as though it was a life and death parting. At the same time, the song Two Springs Reflecting the Moon echoed in the hall. Everyone was heartbroken and teary. Dear disciples, farewell forever. Jun Changxiao opened his mouth and slowly handed the elixir pills over. Just as it was about to enter his mouth, a voice came from outside the hall. I am Zitsong Dao transformed Kuan. My resistance to poison is stronger than the patriarch. Let me test the elixir. Ta. Ta. Hall Master Z carried the stereo and played the transcendental background music. He walked over with a resolute expression. Are you sure? Sure. Here. The scene changed. Hall Master Z stood in front of the elixir testing table and had a wonderful expression. He saw that the disciples were on the verge of breaking down and couldn't help but take the initiative to test the elixir on behalf of the patriarch. In the end, that fellow didn't even decline and asked him to do it. No. Such a long emotional preparation. Was it prepared for me? Patriarch. Hall Master Z said seriously, you should do it. Don't waste time. Jun Changxiao sat down and said, You said that you wanted to test the elixir. Everyone heard it. After saying that, he took out the eru and played a sorrowful tune to boost Hall Master Z's courage. Wuxia. Lu Wanshur, Yao Minjing and the others cried sadly. The current situation was that Hall Master Z wasn't dead yet, and they had already entered the morning hall to pay their respects. Z was so angry that his eyelids kept rolling up. However, since he had said it, he couldn't back down. Therefore, he remembered the sequence of the antidote given by Miao Saifeng and decisively threw the elixir into his mouth. Gulp. The sound of swallowing could be heard. Jun Changxiao stopped playing the eru and stared at the Purple King. Sun Bukong and his medical team subconsciously moved closer. All kinds of first aid equipment were ready. All pairs of eyes were on Z. He was worthy of being called the brightest and most dazzling member of the sect of all times. Ah! Suddenly, Monster King Z Craggy clutched his neck and screamed in pain. Take the antidote quickly, Miao Saifeng said hurriedly. The Purple King's body swayed and reached for the antidote bottle nearby. However, he accidentally knocked it all over. Then, he knelt on the ground in pain. The veins on his face were bulging and looked very scary. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao rushed over and took out an antidote from bottle number 1 and stuffed it into his mouth. However, it didn't have any effect. He was still in great pain. Change to another one, Miao Saifeng said hurriedly. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao continued to bring out bottles number 2 and 3. Even after he had eaten all the antidotes, the purple craggy monster king's face was still as ferocious as before. It's over, Miao Saifeng said. It's not working. Then what should we do? Jun Changxiao said anxiously. Sigh. Miao Saifeng turned around and said in a heavy tone. Prepare for the funeral. Ah. Jun Changxiao was stunned. Hall Master Z, Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma cried out in grief. Their tears were definitely not forced out. System. Jun Changxiao roared in his heart. What should we do? It's very simple. The system said. Host, put your hand on his wrist and activate the emergency mode again. As a life-saving trump card at the cost of losing 3 points, not only could it help Jun Changxiao resolve the crisis, it could also help others resolve the crisis. Just like Yao Menjing, who was sitting on him in the land of demon affinity. Then what are you waiting for? Jun Changxiao rushed over and put his hand on the Purple King's wrist. He shouted, activate it now. Ding! Do you want to spend all your contribution points to resolve the current crisis? Yes. Ding! Sect contribution points 0. Ding! Do you want to spend all your achievement points to resolve the current crisis? Why are you talking so much nonsense when it's a matter of life and death? Just as he was about to shout yes, the Purple King suddenly stood up and laughed. Su Xiaoma, how's my acting now? Jun Changxiao's eyes widened instantly. He turned his head stiffly and saw that this guy's face was normal. There were no signs of poisoning at all. Only then did he realize that he had been tricked. Hence, he slowly shouted a few words. Me. Fuck. Your grandpa. Chapter 1552. When Su Xiaoma was working as a spy in Taishan Xingzong, he needed someone to put on a show. In the end, the patriarch sent the Purple King. Su Xiaoma's acting was so awkward that he couldn't bear to look at it. There was no choice. In terms of acting, monsters were naturally lacking. However, Z was not convinced. Why couldn't the beasts do what humans could do? If they couldn't do it innately, they could only do it later. Therefore, Hall Master Z had been secretly thinking about acting for all these years. He was all talk and no action. He needed to use a real performance to prove himself. Today's pill test was undoubtedly an opportunity. Therefore, after making sure that he could withstand the poison, he began his performance. His facial expression when he was in pain, as well as the slightest movements of his limbs, were impeccable. Even the appearance of his sweat was gradually increasing. Su Xiaoma believed him. Jun Changxiao believed him. The entire sect of all time's upper echelons and disciples believed him. This also meant that even if one was born with no acting skills, as long as they were willing to work hard, they would eventually become a qualified actor. Hall Master Z. Su Xiaoma gave him a thumbs up and said, I'm convinced. Back then, he almost broke down when he acted with this guy. Today, his performance was flawless. He had already become an actor. Phew! Li Qingyang and the others heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that Hall Master Z was acting. Needless to say, his acting was so real that they almost thought he was going to die. The disciples' mentality and expressions were no longer important. What was important was that Jun Changxiao's expression gradually turned from stiff to angry. One of his eyes was spewing out hot flames, while the other was shrouded in an evil light. I activated the crisis resolution mode and instantly lost nearly 2 million contribution points. You are fucking acting? Fine. I'll let you act to your heart's content. In an instant, Jun Changxiao rushed over, grabbed Z's arm, and threw him over his shoulder. His left fist drew the power of the fire soul, and his right fist drew the power of evil. He crazily bombarded the other party's face like a storm. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Under the violent explosion of energy, the hall trembled violently. Li Qingyang looked up and saw the beams shaking and dust falling off. He said in shock, It's over. Boom! Unable to withstand the explosion of power, the main hall collapsed. Pooh! Pooh! The upper echelons and disciples walked out of the rubble with their faces covered in dirt. Then, they looked forward and saw that the patriarch was still riding on Hall Master Z's body, while being bombarded by the torrential rain. The anger around him seemed to have turned into a demon. What the hell is going on? Who can tell us? Boom boom. Boom boom boom. The sound of heavy punches could be heard continuously, from day to night, and then to dawn. How long had Jun Changxiao tortured Hall Master Z? How long had Li Qingyang been standing in front of the ruins? He wasn't feeling sorry for Z, but for the palace. After all, this was something that he had personally built. Patriarch. Lu Wancher walked over and said, Take a break and eat something. Boom. Jun Changxiao gave him another fierce punch. Only then did he stand up with an aching waist and back. The camera did not give the Purple King a close-up, because he had been beaten up for an entire day and night. The scene was unbearable to watch. In the cafeteria, Jun Changxiao's hand that was holding the chopsticks was trembling. Once he thought of the 2 million contribution points being cleared, his expression was pained as he pressed his chest against the table. "Sigh," the system said helplessly. "I knew that the host would be very concerned, so I asked for the 3 points separately." After activating the crisis resolution mode in the land of demon affinity, it answered on behalf of Jun Changxiao and cleared the 3 points directly. Just now, it asked for the contribution points first, then the achievement points, and then the reputation points. Its purpose was to make him feel regret. Luckily, it had asked for them separately and only cleared the contribution points. If the other 2 points were gone, there would probably be a barbecue on the main peak's training ground right now, with cumin and chili all over the body of the Purple King. "No need to be sad," the system consoled. "It's only 2 million. Jun Changxiao roared in his heart. 2 million is not considered money? The system said. This time, the pill did not cause any harm to Hall Master Z. This means that Hall Master Miao's antidote pill is effective. Just treat it as spending 2 million to buy a heaven-defying pill recipe. Jun Changxiao was startled, then said, "That's true." He was so worried about the contribution points that he forgot that Z's poison test was successful, which meant that the pill could be used on the disciples. The sect of all times' overall strength was only at the void-piercing realm. If they wanted to reach a higher level, for example, to reach the core transformation realm, not only would they need a large amount of martial arts resources, but they would also need a long time. As long as the poison of the core transformation pill did not endanger the disciples, it could be achieved in a very short time. 2 million contribution points in exchange for the sect's collective breakthrough to the core transformation realm. The system said, "Isn't it a loss?" "Not a loss, not a loss." Jun Changxiao immediately thought it through, and a smile appeared on his face. After the meal, Gosheng walked out of the cafeteria and saw Li Qingyang still standing in front of the ruins. So he walked forward and picked up the plaque with the words, "Unyielding Spirit," and said, "The main hall was built in the lower realm. Now that it's in the upper realm, it's obviously a little outdated. Let's rebuild it." The main hall represented the dignity of the sect. If it was destroyed by others, it would definitely not be tolerated. However, if it was destroyed by one of their own, especially by a sect leader, yes, it would be treated as if nothing had happened. However, Gosheng's words made sense. The main hall of the sect was built in the lower realm. Although its specifications were not inferior to many first-rate and second-rate sects, after coming to the upper realm, it was not enough compared to ordinary sections. It was necessary to replan and rebuild it. Jun Changxiao's abuse of Hall Master Z had caused the collapse, so they could skip the demolition step. Yes, when it was said that they had to rebuild it, Li Qingyang was instantly energized. Thus, he casually ate a few mouthfuls in the cafeteria, then called for Page and his own construction team to tidy up the ruins and design on the spot. Since they were in the upper realm, the main hall had to be more imposing. After an hour of planning, a brand new main hall sketch was presented. The specifications were several times larger than before. This would naturally affect the martial arts arena and other buildings on the main peak. Thus, the reconstruction and renovation was considered a huge project. Jun Changxiao was very assured to leave the construction to his second disciple. Thus, he immediately went to the medicine hall and said, "Elder Wei, refine as many of these poisonous herbs as you can." Since the first revolution pills would not cause any harm, the next step was to plant them and strive to achieve mass production. This would allow the disciples to collectively enter the core transformation realm. Hall Master Miao. Jun Changxiao went to the poison hall again and said, "As for the antidote, we have to refine more. Elixirs required herbs, and so did the antidote. Thus, if they were to mass-produce the antidote, the money would naturally be spent very quickly. As long as it could increase the overall strength of the sect, Gosheng did not care even if he had to spend all his wealth." Spirit Beast Peak. The Purple King was lying on the bed. Apart from a pair of lifeless eyes, his entire face was covered in mosaic. The main reason was that he had been abused too badly, so it would not cause intense discomfort if he saw it. Z felt very wronged. I had successfully tested the pills for the patriarch. Why was I abused in the end? Chapter 1553. Plop. Inside the training room, Li Tiantian half knelt on the ground with a grim expression. At this moment, the poison in his body was like a flood, making him feel as if he could die at any moment. Fortunately, there were many antidote pills beside him. After taking them as quickly as possible, the intense pain gradually weakened. 15 minutes later, Li Tiantian was lying flat on the ground, sweating profusely. The pain caused by the poison attacking his body made him feel as if he had experienced death many times. Thinking back, his spine was drenched in cold sweat. However, everything was worth it because he had successfully stepped into Transformation Core Realm. Feng Guichen and the others refined a total of 10 quick pills. After the Purple King tested that there was no problem, the rest would definitely be given to the disciples. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples had already broken through. So Jun Changxiao gave 9 pills to Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others. As for the other disciples, if they refine more in the future, they would definitely be given more. Not bad. Sensing that Li Tiantian was lying on the ground like a dead dog, but his aura was already at Transformation Core Realm, a smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face. A human's physique could not be compared to a Kuan. After taking the pill, one would have to endure the corrosion of the poison. Although the process was a bit bitter, as long as one could enter Transformation Core Realm, no one would care. Indeed, in a world where martial arts were respected, if one could increase their cultivation, no matter what kind of torture and pain they experienced, they would choose to endure it, even if it meant losing their lives. Next, Sima Zhongda and the others took the quick pills and successfully entered Transformation Core Realm from Void-Piercing Realm, increasing the overall strength of the sect of all times by a small margin. A few days later, Elder Wei divided a medicinal field for the poisonous herbs needed to refine the quick pills. The growth period was about 2 to 3 months. It's a bit slow, Jun Changxiao said, but it's better than letting the disciples cultivate. Not only that, the system said, it can also save a lot of resources. Jun Changxiao agreed with this point. Ignoring the realm and forcefully advancing to Transformation Core Realm, the amount of Xian stones and true stones saved in the process would definitely be countless. It's hard to imagine. Jun Changxiao took out the pill recipe and said in surprise, a non-human race can actually create such a divine tool pill. Under normal circumstances, human beings were best at alchemy and forging. It was unbelievable that the demonic tribe was better than humans in these 2 areas. The system said, I don't think the demonic tribe was the one who researched the recipe. Oh, Jun Changxiao asked curiously, what do you mean? From the huge size of the devil army, it can be seen that this is a combative tribe. Their research on Chimen Duanjia and other aspects are definitely not that outstanding. The system said. Not bad. Jun Changxiao agreed. Every race had its own characteristics. For example, although the human race was not as strong as the other races in terms of physique and bloodline, their strength lay in their imagination and creativity. As for the demonic tribe, it could be seen from their tall and strong physique that they were born to fight. Asking them to sit down and research alchemy and medical skills was no different from asking rough men to do embroidery. The system said, since the demonic tribe did not exist in the upper realms race system in the beginning, it's very likely that they migrated from other planes or galaxies. As for the pill recipe and forging techniques, they could also be foreign products. That makes sense. It was rare for the 2 of them to have the same opinion, and there was no argument. Here comes the problem again. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, how did they migrate here? Could it be that they relied on the space-time worm? No. The system denied. The upper realms universe system is too big. It may not be possible to rely on the space-time worm alone. Maybe there's a tool like the Star Spirit Realm battleship. Oh, Jun Changxiao responded. How the demonic tribe came to the upper realm had nothing to do with him. What was the point of thinking so much? It was better to go to the forging hall and see how Master Fan's research was going. Forging Peak. Fan Yezi sat in the stone pavilion and was concentrating on the forging books obtained from the demonic territory. His eyes flashed with surprise and surprise. Hall Master Fan. Jun Changsha walked over and sat next to him. How's the research going? Fan Yezi came back to his senses from the sea of knowledge and exclaimed, Patriarch, these books are too professional. Not only do they record the armor forging technique, there are also many other forging techniques. After ascending to the upper realm, Jun Changshao had found him many forging books, but compared to the ones from the demonic territory, it was a world of difference. Jun Changshao asked with interest, compared to the fighter jets? They're only stronger. Fan Yezi said. The unmanned fighter jets were driven by a mysterious formation, but their bodies were forged by various ores, so he had gone to the formation hall to study them carefully. As a matter of fact, there were many scattered wing remains in the hall. The old man from Taishian was in charge of researching the formation, and Fan Yezi was in charge of studying the structure of the fighter jets. If both of them could make substantial progress, it should not be a problem to perfectly replicate a drone. Then do more research, Jun Changshao said. The disciples of the sect are still waiting for new equipment. The four-piece set of Bahuang Tianin had not been popularized yet, because the ores were relatively rare. The armor worn by the demonic tribe soldiers, especially the second-generation version, was of good quality. The ores required were not high, and there were many casting molds. If they were to be mass-produced, it would not be difficult to have a few sets. Patriarch, Fan Yezi said, I'm the only one in the forging hall. Can you send some disciples over? They don't know how to forge. That's not a problem. They can just help. Okay, Jun Changshao said. I'll find some time and send some disciples over. Find some time? Fan Yezi rolled his eyes. He had complained about the lack of manpower in the forging hall many times, but every time, there was no one. He did not know if he would be able to wait until then. Formation hall. Jun Changshao walked in from outside. The old man from Taishian and his research team were still conducting comprehensive research on the unmanned fighter jets. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao walked over and said, After the drawer of the cockpit was opened, I found this strange thing inside. Oh. Jun Changshao took out the mechanical device that looked like glasses and said in surprise, Is this a device to test combat power? Then he put it on. Pa. When the button was activated, dense numbers suddenly appeared on the lens. Then, it locked onto Shengguan Xinyao, and a series of strange words appeared. That's right. The system said. The host guessed correctly. This is the measuring device. Your disciple's combat power is 36. Jun Changshao was speechless. However, the system said, her defense is 24, agility is 21, and mental strength is 169. Jun Changshao suddenly realized that these values must correspond to the physique, movement, and soul of the martial arts world. It was just a change of name. What about my master? Combat power 267. What about me? This thing can't detect me. How am I supposed to know? Jun Changshao took off the measuring device and threw it into the space ring. Although this thing could directly analyze one's strength with numbers, the martial arts world still relied on one's realm and understanding of the nature of heaven and earth, so it didn't have much reference value. Ha ha ha. At this moment, the old man from Taishian walked out of the mech and laughed. I understand. Understand what? Jun Changshao asked. The old man from Taishian walked to the table covered with drawings and took out the internal formation diagram he drew, saying, According to my research during this period, I have roughly confirmed that the driving principle of these formations is soul control. Soul control? Jun Changshao said in surprise. Is it the same principle as the soul control of the mech I mentioned? No. The old man from Taishian said seriously. More professional than you. What do you mean? According to my preliminary judgment, The core formation of the mech can accept the soul of a martial artist and control all the driving devices. Is there a difference between this and the idea I proposed? The mech comes from the distant astral world. Do you think the martial artist and the soul can maintain contact? No. Even if the martial artist could control the mech by separating the soul, there would be a distance limit. If the distance was too far, the connection would be broken. The astral world and the upper realm are separated by several galaxies. There is only one possibility, that the mech can still be controlled. The soul integrated into the core formation is actually equivalent to a new consciousness. The old man from Taishan said. I'll go. Jun Changshao said in surprise. Is it that magical? Come. The old man from Taishan walked to the front of the mech and opened a shell, saying, I have cracked the core formation. You can try to integrate a strand of your soul into it. Jun Changshao walked over and found that the internal structure was not only complicated, but also dense formation patterns. Because it was different from the formation system he came into contact with, he was a little dazzled. Integrated there? The groove in the central area. Jun Changshao closed his eyes and separated a strand of his soul until it filled the groove in the center of the formation. In an instant, it was as if he had turned into a pilot sitting in the cockpit. Magical. Go Xing put his hand on the starting lever with a look of surprise. Who? Suddenly, the tail of the mech shot out an energy light. The intact mech instantly broke through a wall of the formation hall and flew out. Li Qingyang, who was planning in front of the ruins of the main hall, raised his head. His spiritual sense caught a big hole in the wall of the formation hall. He immediately clutched his chest, and a pained expression appeared on his face. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the sky above the eternal immortal mountain, the unmanned mech flew at an extremely fast speed. Sometimes it flew sideways, sometimes it flew backwards, as if it was performing aerial acrobatics. Interesting, interesting. A smile appeared on Jun Changshao's face as he stood in the formation hall. At this moment, he was more like an innocent child playing with the remote control plane his parents bought for him. The old man from Taishuan's analysis was right. This kind of unmanned mech from the astral world could be controlled as long as the soul was injected into the formation. Moreover, what surprised Jun Changshao the most was that the mech flew out of the eternal immortal mountain and flew far enough away. Although it was disconnected from him, it was still flying, as if someone was still controlling it. Whoosh! After a while, the mech flew back to the eternal immortal mountain. The soul was connected to the main body, and Go Sheng regained control. This is too magical. Jun Changshao exclaimed. After disconnecting from the mech, the flight path was exactly the same as what he had expected. This meant that the soul that had fused with it had its own consciousness at that stage, and even completely inherited its thoughts. Master. Withdrawing a wisp of his soul, Jun Changshao said, Can this kind of special formation be used on the mech? He was not interested in the unmanned mech, but he was interested in the internal structure of the formation. If it was used on the Diablo, not only would the disciples be able to control it remotely, they would also be able to control it in the true sense of the word. Follow me. The old man from Taishan brought Jun Changshao to the back of the mountain. There was a mech placed there with dazzling patterns on it. Could it be? Just as Jun Changshao opened his mouth, the old man from Taishan proudly said, That's right, this kind of extremely special soul formation has already been used. Chapter 1554. Boom! Boom! Heavy footsteps came from the gloomy forest. A mecha that was dozens of feet tall pushed open the tree and walked over. Its eyes were shining. Together with the dark color, it looked like a ghost from hell. Whoosh! A human figure flew over from afar and landed on a big tree. Then it issued some kind of order to the big guy. It quickly rushed into the depths of the forest, then raised its palm and shot out a beam of energy, killing the leopard-type demon beast that was moving at high speed on the spot. Not bad. Zhongyi nodded with satisfaction. Using Diablo to kill a Void Realm beast? Did it have nothing better to do? No. This time, He came to the forest thousands of miles away from the sect to test whether the mecha would listen to his orders when it was operated by soul and disconnected from the user. He was very satisfied with the result. Zhongyi transmitted his voice to the members of the drizzle hall nearby, reporting to the patriarch, "Everything is normal. Roger that." Under the continuous transmission of the intelligence network, the news was quickly sent to the sect of all times. Jun Changshao took a sip of tea and said with a smile, "When fighting in the future, you just need to let them merge with the soul." The old man from Taishan said, "Although it's convenient, if the mecha is seriously damaged, the soul will also be damaged. I'm afraid it will bring irreparable damage to the disciple." "It's okay," Jun Changshao said indifferently. "As long as the soul refining sacred celestial art is cultivated to the out-of-body level, the separated soul will not affect the main body even if it is erased." This was the reason why Go Sheng had been working on unmanned mecha. Unfortunately, the mental cultivation method was too profound. Even he himself had not comprehended the out-of-body level yet. Of course, with the doppelganger formed by the major Thousand Shadows art, even if he had been worrying about the sect and neglected cultivation, he would comprehend it sooner or later. "Master," Jun Changshao said, "the previous 1,000 mechas and the subsequent ones have to be added with this soul array. Elder Zhen and the others have already started to act," the old man from Taishan said. "That's good," Jun Changshao reminded them again, and then returned to his residence. He was free now. The medical hall, poison refining hall, smithing hall, and array formation hall started to get busy. After all, they had to refine elixirs research armor and set up array formations. This was the sect of all times. Some of the halls might be very idle, or even have no sense of existence. However, when they were put to use, they would definitely be busy to the point of exhaustion. Compared to the Spirit Beast Hall, they were still considered fortunate. Due to Hall Master Z's actions of testing the pill, Elder Nyo and the others were now holding brooms and cleaning the various mountain peaks for a month. These chores were originally done by Du Kong, but since it was replaced by the Spirit Beast Hall, he could only focus on cultivating Dharma. The sect of all times was operating as usual. Jun Changshao also had a rare opportunity to cultivate and comprehend martial arts techniques. Outside, the 10 great immortal sects began a large-scale search of the buried moon pavilion. The entire world was filled with a murderous aura. Although Jun Changshao did not go out, the Drizzle Hall had always been collecting information, so he knew the current situation of the world like the back of his hand. Patriarch. One day, Li Luochio walked into the study and reported, "I just received news that the Realm Hall's men found the buried Moon Pavilion branch in Sea King City last night. Both sides had a fierce battle outside the city, and both sides suffered casualties." "Heh," Jun Changshao said. "To be able to find the branch, the Realm Hall is not useless after all." Li Luochio smiled and said, "The investigation of the buried Moon Pavilion this time was initiated by the 10 great celestial sects. They definitely won't dare to slack off, so it's normal for them to find the branch based on the information provided by the Patriarch." Go ahead. Jun Changshao put his legs on the table and smiled. "I'm looking forward to picking up the scraps." The 10 great celestial sects would definitely not allow the demon ancestor to exist. Both sides would eventually have a winner. What he needed to do was to watch the fire burn across the river and reap the benefits when the time was right. Lingyao Wonderland. "Master." The hunchbacked elder frowned and said, "The 10 great celestial sects are serious this time. The buried moon pavilion might be destroyed." Empress Lingyao, who was sitting on the throne, said faintly, "The demon ancestor is someone they have to get rid of. Now that he has been identified as a spy, the situation is not optimistic." "This Jun Changshao is not simple," the hunchbacked elder said. With just a few words in the Holy City's meeting, he labeled the fiend ancestor as a spy. Empress Lingyao said, "The demonic tribe does not belong to the upper realm, and now there are foreign warships invading. Perhaps he has guessed correctly." Whether or not the demon ancestor was a spy, she was skeptical, and so were the 10 great celestial sects. But at this moment, they could only believe it. They would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Actually, Empress Lingyao said, I am very curious now. What method did Jun Changshao use to blow up the 9 warships that were preparing to escape? Out of the 10 warships that invaded, the upper realm joined forces with various experts to barely destroy one of them. Gu Zhaoxi flew out from the Sect of all times and sacrificed himself to blow it up. This was too exaggerated. Moreover, the Starry Sky Fortress was also blown up. Combining the two, did Jun Changshao already possess some kind of terrifying power that could destroy everything? The 10 great celestial sects had also mentioned this in their discussions, but they did not go to the Sect of all times to ask for clarification. Firstly, the two sides were not on good terms because of the demonic body. Secondly, if they provoked the other side and blew up their own home, it would be troublesome. What was this? That's right, nuclear deterrence. If Go Sheng took out a soul bomb and placed it in the sky, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Who dares to fight me?" The final result would be the celestial sects all clasping their fists and saying they did not dare. It should be some kind of special trump card, the hunchbacked old man said. Empress Lingyao said, regardless of whether it is a trump card or not, the invasion of the foreign warships has undoubtedly helped Jun Changshao. The Jia Hall will definitely not dare to offend him again. Then Master's plan. It doesn't matter. Empress Lingyao said. With Jun Changshao's personality, he will definitely remember the 10 great celestial sects besieging the Sect of all times. Sooner or later, there will be a day when they will fall out. As a subordinate, the Jia Hall will naturally be affected. In the dark and gloomy palace, the demon ancestor sat cross-legged in the blood pool. Crimson lines covered his entire body, as if he was being nourished by some kind of power. Phew! After a while, he opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. My ancestor, the black-robed old man said respectfully. The investigation has been completed. The 10 great celestial sects suddenly attacked the buried moon pavilion, because they think that the demon clan is the accomplice of the invaders. The demon ancestor's eyes gradually turned cold. 100,000 years ago, these sanctimonious forces thought that the demon clan wanted to dominate the upper world, so they joined forces with the other major clans to destroy us. Now that I am resurrected, they have found a new reason? If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. The black-robed old man wanted to say something but stopped. What are you trying to say? My ancestor, the 10 great celestial sects think that the demon clan is a spy from the outside world. It is all because the patriarch of the Sect of all times fanned the flames during the meeting in the holy city. Pfft! The demon ancestor could not hold back the blood in his body and spat it out. The disciples of the Sect of all times had stolen the Khanate Saint demonic body. He had not succeeded in getting someone else to do the dirty work. Instead, he had let the sect become the hero. Now that he had been tricked by that guy, it was hard for him not to be angry. Despicable guy. The demon ancestor wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said angrily, When I recover, I will destroy the Sect of all times with my own hands. Let's go. Inform all members of the Buried Moon Pavilion that we will depart for the Hidden Spirit Island in the West Ocean in 3 days. They were afraid that the 10 great celestial sects would find them. My ancestor, the black-robed old man said, there is an ancient array on the Hidden Spirit Island. If we get close, that was set up by me in the past. The demon ancestor sneered and said, I'm afraid the 10 great immortal sects would never have thought that I still have a way to enter the demonic region. As long as we can successfully enter and control the demonic army, the entire upper world will be doomed. Hee. Chapter 1555. Without the Khanate Saint demon body, why was the demon ancestor so confident that he could control the demon army? Because he was the ancestor of the demon clan, the leader of the clan. Even without the demon body, he could still command his subordinates. However, the reality was a little cruel. The demon army in the demon territory had been moved away by Jun Changshao. Even the royal city's treasury and all kinds of forging facilities were gone. Even if they went in, they would only listen to the snowflakes and the north wind. The demon ancestor did not know about this. He gave up the palace where he was in seclusion and took the elite troops of the buried moon pavilion to the West Sea. The 10 immortal sects were closing in, and there was no way to escape. However, it did not mean that he admitted defeat. As long as his injuries recovered and he regained his strength, he would definitely rise again and cause chaos in the upper realm. No matter what caused the demon ancestor's personality to be distorted in the past, he was now a complete villain. Sigh. 2 villains in one world. How could he live well in the future? Some people would ask, who is the other villain? Hurry and see a doctor. I'll pay for it myself. You don't have to pay me back. The West Sea. After traveling for half a month, the demon ancestor arrived at the hidden spirit island, which was described as the most mysterious place. Why was it mysterious? Because the island was located in the West Sea. It disappeared from time to time. Sometimes it was in the east, sometimes it was in the west. It was like a wandering ghost. Even if a lucky boat or martial artist came here, they would definitely be lost in the forbidden array and turn into a skeleton. Buzz! On the beach, the demon ancestor waved his hand, and the invisible array was immediately removed. Roar! Roar! At the same time, a deafening roar came from the island. Immediately, a group of huge birds and beasts rushed out, and then prostrated themselves on the ground, as if they were worshipping. As expected, the demon ancestor said with relief, "You have all grown up." The 4 black-robed elders, and the members of the buried moon pavilion, standing behind changed their expressions. They had only seen these strange demonic beasts in ancient books, because they had long been extinct and no longer existed. The 10 major celestial sects thought that by sealing off the demonic territory, they would be able to get rid of all future troubles. Little did they know that I had a trick up my sleeve. I had placed the baby demonic beasts of my clan on the hidden spirit island in advance. The demon ancestor said proudly, leaving behind a few resurrection plans and leaving powerful demonic beasts on the island. He might as well call this Master Devil Hands. Don't say it. After 100,000 years of natural development, the demonic beasts on Hidden Spirit Island had grown to a very large scale. For example, there were several hundred demonic beasts similar to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and their strength was comparable to at least 8 or 9 transformations. There were also over 1,000 flying demonic beasts similar to the ostrich, and their strength was at least 5 or 6 transformations. This was still a large number of beasts. Some of the beasts were fewer in number, but their strength was getting stronger. Some of them were even comparable to the truth-seeking realm. With such a lineup and no concealment array at the start, ordinary cultivators would definitely die if they entered. Let's go. Mogisho led his subordinates through the dense forest and stopped at an area with higher terrain. Then, he waved his hand lightly. When the formation in front of them was removed, a small city instantly appeared in their field of vision. Above the city gate were the words Spirit Vanishing City. From today onwards, this is where you will live. Yes. Thousands of buried Moon Pavilion members walked into the spotless city, looking at the various defensive measures set up on the city walls. They were all amazed by the foresight of their ancestor 100,000 years ago to raise demonic beasts on the island and build a city in advance. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the study, one hand holding the left side of his face. His eyes glanced at the map on the table, and he muttered to himself, "Where will the demon ancestor hide?" Although he wanted to be a spectator, if the 10 major immortal sects could not find that guy and let him recover his cultivation in a short time, he and his sect would definitely be in trouble. Without a doubt, the system said. After all, your disciple stole his demonic body. So, Jun Changshao stood up, rubbed his temples and said, "I can't just rely on the immortal sect to deal with the devil ancestor. I have to personally go and find him. I have to take advantage of the fact that my cultivation hasn't recovered to prevent future troubles." The 10 major immortal sects have better intelligence than the Drizzle Hall. If they can't find him, how will the hosts find him? The system began to pour cold water on him. Jun Changshao scanned the map back and forth and said, since the demon ancestor left so many demonic troops in the demonic region, he will definitely find a way to enter. And then, the sealed entrance to the demonic region is in the West Sea. Perhaps he is hiding in some corner. The West Sea of the upper realm is vast and boundless. A few falling star continents can't compare to it. The host has no clue to find his hiding place. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, the system said. Originally, Jun Changshao had only made a casual guess and had no intention of going to the West Sea to look for it. However, when he heard its firm tone, he immediately made a decision and said, since you're going, I have no reason not to go. Whoosh that day, Goshing boarded the ancient warship and left the Sect of all times, embarking on the journey to the West Sea. It could be said that he left as soon as he said he would, rushing through the 9 states. This time, he didn't have much hope in going to the West Sea. His real goal was to cultivate to the peak of the revolving core realm. There was no point in cultivating, so he planned to go out and try his luck. Perhaps he might accidentally find dozens of super large immortal stone veins. Haha. The system laughed. In other aspects, it might suspect that he was a jinx. Finding dozens of super large immortal stone veins? Absolutely impossible. If he really found one, he would do a handstand. Come on. Mercilessly slap his face. Hidden Spirit Island. Several subordinates of the demon ancestor appeared from the formation boundary, and then flew toward the continent on a flying treasure. The headquarters of the Buried Moon Pavilion would be placed here in the future. Many members would arrive later, so they had to prepare a large amount of supplies and daily necessities. There was an ancient formation on the island, and it didn't change its position. Therefore, it would be difficult for the 10 major immortal sects to find it in the sea. Wait, wasn't this similar to the Demon Emperor's Gate? It hid in a forbidden area, and relied on a special formation to move around crazily. In the end, it was still found by Jun Changshao, who was good at fighting. Jun Changshao had taken advantage of it several times. It was similar, but in terms of strength, the demon ancestor was much stronger than the Demon Emperor's Gate sect master. Moreover, he had so many tricks up his sleeve 100,000 years ago. How could he be found so easily? Huff! The demon ancestor, who was sitting cross-legged in the main hall, opened his eyes and said helplessly, although my body is becoming more and more compatible with it, my soul has suffered a setback. I'm stuck at the peak of the revolving core realm, and it's difficult for me to enter the truth-seeking realm. Forget it, forget it. It's not something urgent. He got up and walked out of the main hall. He walked along the tree-lined path to the back of the mountain. Then, he activated a mechanism, and an entrance slowly opened in the stone wall. There was a small palace inside. After the demon ancestor entered, the torches in all directions suddenly lit up. Under the illumination of the light, he could clearly see the outline of a huge pattern on the stone slab in the center. With my current cultivation, I should be able to activate the array to enter the demonic region. This array pattern was set up by him 100,000 years ago. Its purpose was to teleport to the demonic region. Whether it could break the seal set up by the 10 immortal sects was still uncertain. Swish! The demon ancestor walked into the center of the array and sat down cross-legged. Buzz! Buzz! Demonic chi spread out, and the ancient patterns that had existed for a long time were suddenly activated. They flashed with red light and gradually formed layers of light screens. It can connect to the demonic region. Swish! Swish! The demon ancestor quickly formed a hand seal and chanted a strange incantation. He placed 2 fingers in front of his temple and shouted, I am the only one in the world. Turn the starry sky. Swish! A stream of light flashed, and his figure gradually blurred. It worked. This ancient array that was set up 100,000 years ago was not suppressed by the seal. It could be teleported to the demonic region. Kakik! My soldiers, have you heard the call of this ancestor? The voice became weaker and weaker as the demon ancestor was teleported away. The West Sea was a very general name. The coastal continents were included in it, not just the boundless ocean. Jun Changxiao rushed over on the ancient warship. The first stop was Sea King City, because a very important branch of the Buried Moon Pavilion was here. They had just fought with the Jia Hall not long ago. Look, it's the ancient warship. The patriarch of the sect of all times. Gosheng flew openly in midair on the official road of Sea King City, and immediately alerted the passers-by on the road. How could they have heard of him in such a remote place? Jun Changxiao was a little smug. He did not go into the city. Instead, he rushed to the open space where the Buried Moon Pavilion and the Jia Hall fought. There were huge pits nearby, and the rocks and trees had collapsed. He could infer that the battle must have been very fierce. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts captured an acquaintance in the battle area. He was surprised. Why is he here? Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan, who was carrying the sarcophagus, looked up and smiled. We meet again. Brother Liu, why have you come to Sea King City? Jun Changxiao asked. Sigh. Ryu Sinan shook his head. I was going to your sect, but I got lost and ended up in the West Sea. Jun Changxiao almost fell off the ship. Brother, the sect of all times is in the southeast region, and the West Sea is in the west. You got lost too much. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said, You're here to investigate the Buried Moon Pavilion? That's right. Jun Changxiao jumped down from the warship and put away his space ring. He then said with a solemn expression, The Zongyue Pavilion is related to the demon ancestor, so I came here to investigate it. I hope I can do something for the upper world. Although this demon exterminator was a member of the Jia Hall, he felt that he was a good person after meeting him in Moyuan City. It would be best if they could build a friendship. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan cupped his fists and said, Righteous. Jun Changxiao said, The upper realm is so big. It's fate that we met here. Why don't we go to a restaurant in Sea King City and have a drink or two? That would be great. Ryu Sinan did not decline. After all, he was exhausted after coming to the West Sea. A drink or two would relieve his tiredness. Please, please. Just as the two of them entered Sea King City, the demon lord, who entered Moang territory with the help of a formation, entered Moang City. He looked calm on the surface, but he was actually very excited. 100,000 years ago, he scattered the million-strong demon army in various cities and sealed them. There were as many as 300,000 soldiers in the main city, including the 8 most capable generals. Gather the army. What is there to be afraid of? Along the way, the demon lord's eyes shone with excitement. Soon, he arrived at the military camp that he had built himself. He looked at the drill ground and the stage with a smile, only to see an empty space. Where are my soldiers? Where are my 8 generals? The demon lord stood there in a daze, the smile on his face completely frozen. The camera panned to the sky and gave him a close-up shot of nothing around him. Sad music started to play, snowflakes fluttered, and the north wind blew. The world was vast. A plum blossom stood proudly in the snow, only for the fragrance of his lover. Puff, puff, puff. Puff, puff, puff. Blood splattered out like fireworks in full bloom. 4th update, 3,200 plus words. I can't take it anymore. My brain is in a daze. If I force myself to write, I might not even know what I'm writing. The total word count for this month is fixed at 199459. Damn it, more than 500 words. It's stopping me from reaching 200,000. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.